Don't go into the attic.
The horror of the children.
The caller came out.
This is Bobby. You won't see me anymore, so I'm going to have a little session with your machine. Oh, I borrowed your razor and...
Do you find me attractive?
I think you're a very attractive woman.
I've already been to the police, but I didn't tell them about Bobby. I wanted to talk to her first.
Because of the size of that cock in your pants, I don't think you're so married. Would you like to touch me?
Some blonde saw me, but I'll get her.
This is Kurt Rector from House of Death, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yeah, welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode number 29. And this show, we're covering Dress to Kill, which is Erik's pick. And we're also going to be talking about our top 3 slash locations. So, without further ado, let's introduce you to the Slasher Podcast Best Dressed podcasters. Erik, what are you wearing?
What am I wearing? I'm wearing a white t-shirt that said Budweiser on it, and it has some potato stains on it because I was peeling potatoes rather glamorously before I came on air here.
Well, that's not really Dress to Kill, is it?
No.
It's
well, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, we'll forgive you. How about you, Nathan? What have you got on?
White Batman shirt.
Okay. Ooh, there's a pattern emerging. What about you, Joseph?
I'm wearing absolutely nothing at all, except my clothes.
Okay. Oh, I was going to say it's a bit more into the kind of psychosexual thing of Dress to Kill. I'm
wearing black shorts and a black t-shirt.
Oh, is it really warm there? Then?
Sorry for everyone out there.
That's all he ever wears, Justin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's freezing here.
It's not that cold outside right now. It's a little chilly, but I'm inside of a warm bedroom.
So, yeah, okay. Well, I'm just getting in the mood for Dress to Kill and all of the psychosexual shenanigans, which we'll be talking about later. And by the way, in case you wondered, I'm wearing a floral print pullover. So
I thought you were wearing your bright red jumper with the floral print trim.
Well, I've got a grey jumper with snowflakes on it, actually. So, and I imagine everyone out there must be thinking, what a shame they can't see us all in our finery.
You sound a bit like Shakin' Stevens in that video for Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, no, it's not that bad. It's not that chunky. It's actually quite tasteful and a little bit more modern than Shakin' Stevens, thankfully. Yeah, God, it would be awful to look like Shakin' Stevens. Anyway, most Americans probably... Do you know who Shakin' Stevens is, Joseph and Nathan?
No.
He's the Welsh Elvis.
The Welsh Elvis, I was just going to say, yeah.
Yes, who had lots of hits around about the time. He was very, very popular in around 1980 and 81, so around the time Dress to Kill was out. But you just be thankful you don't know who he is, because...
Does he sing You Ain't Nothing But a Coon Dog instead of Hound Dog?
No, he sings, was it Green Door?
Green Door and This Old House, and he kind of had a rock and roll sensibility, very sort of 50s throwback.
This Old House, I think I've heard that before, so I probably have heard of him.
Yeah, yes. But enough about Shakin' Stevens, even 2 minutes of it is too much. So how are we doing today anyway? Are we all okay?
I want to say a big happy birthday to Paul L. Smith, star of Pieces, who is 73 today.
Wow, that's a right.
I discovered just by randomly searching IMDb today.
Okay. Well, of course, we did Pieces last time, didn't we? Which was probably our most epicist. That's my new word for today.
Oh, and speaking of epic...
Over 3 hours.
Speaking of epic, and speaking of the last podcast, I did mention that the Prince Charles Cinema were going to be doing a Friday the 13th marathon in July. It's been confirmed now as July... Where is it? I can't see the exact date here, but it's in July. They're showing all 8 parts. It starts at 6:30 in the evening and finishes at 9:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Yes. So it's actually Friday the 13th of July, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
Gosh, can you imagine? So it would be ending on part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Can you imagine trying to stay awake for Jason Takes Manhattan?
That would be tricky.
7 o'clock in the morning.
I think if I was going to see it, and I can't actually because I will be away that week, I know already, I would probably have abandoned after part 5, I'd say. If I made it that far.
Well, I suppose it's because I used to go to the all-night sessions at the Scala in London in the early 90s, and it was a kind of marathon, but you used to take things like Pro Plus and stuff like that. Kind of like legal speed, wasn't it? Pro Plus. But yeah, well, okay, well, how about you guys, Eric? Sorry, Joseph and Nathan. You've been being ultra healthy at the moment, aren't you?
Yes, I'm on day number 7 of a raw vegetable and fruit juice fast.
Yes.
I'm over it.
Oh, you finished it?
It's done for me. I get to eat today.
Wow. Okay.
I have a few more days, but I feel pretty good actually. I mean, I'm not craving meat. Let's see. I'm thinking about becoming a full-blown vegetarian. I do have
see how
cravings.
long that lasts.
Yeah, I do have cravings for dairy. I have to admit, because I love milk and I love cheese.
Well,
but other than that, I'm okay. I think ketosis set in a long time ago, so I'm not as hungry as I was the first few days.
Okay, well that's good. And as you know, me and Eric have been with you all the way on the liquid diet, haven't we, Eric?
Oh yes, yes. I approve of the liquid diet, of course.
Yes. So we're sitting here. I'm sipping a nice little red wine, and Eric, so you're on.
So yours works because it just makes you black out, and you can't get hungry if you're passed out.
Well,
exactly. Yeah.
Whatever works for you, I find is always the best. So yes. Well, anyway, enough of our healthy or unhealthy pursuits. Shall we do a time-honoured tradition? Should we talk about what we've been watching recently? Who would like to go first? Joseph, how about you?
All right. Well, last Friday we watched The Sleeper. It's that new slasher film that tries to be an old slasher film.
It's very divisive, isn't it?
You've heard of it, right?
I've heard of it. Yeah. I just heard it's very divisive. It seems to be
yes,
quite strong opinions.
I love the PR campaign this guy went through. I mean, he's going to release it on VHS, and the covers looked all old and retro, and the trailer was really good, but we couldn't finish it. I mean, it was really awful. But so I went home and I forced myself to finish it, and it's just really terrible. I mean, this guy spends so much time trying to get the film to look like 1981 that he neglects story, pacing, editing, directing, acting, and the irony is that nothing in the film looks like 1981. I mean, it looks like a modern film to me. I mean, it's just a serious misfire.
That's a shame, isn't it? Because the trailer looked really good. Have you heard about it, Eric?
I have, yeah. I noticed that Meep wasn't impressed with it either. He mentioned either on the forums or on Facebook recently.
Well, what about you, Nathan? Did you share the same opinion?
I haven't watched it all the way through yet. So, I mean, I only watched the first 20 minutes, and I wasn't impressed, and everybody else wanted to shut it off, so I was like, yeah, let's just turn it off. But I said I'd finish it at some point, so.
That's a real shame, isn't it? Because, like I say, the trailer looked great, and I did try and get the director on the show, actually. I did make some overtures to through his Facebook page or the film's Facebook page to see if he'd be interested in coming on and having a chat with us, and I didn't hear back from him, but maybe it's just as well. But okay, well, anything else, Joseph? What else has been catching your fancy?
I don't know. I've just been watching a lot of The Biggest Loser to kind of keep my mind off food, just to watch a lot of fat people lose weight. And that's about it. I haven't really watched a whole lot of slasher films as of late. But I did watch some Married with Children episodes that were kind of slasher-esque on Friday as well. So there's that. But that's about it.
Okay. Well, you could do it like The Biggest Loser, couldn't you? But quite a good slasher thing, because whoever loses,
See, they should make a slasher reality show like Big Brother or Biggest Loser. That's an untapped market that I think someone really should, pick up on.
Well, the taglines kind of write themselves, don't they? Kind of lose your gut one way or the other, and things like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe we're onto something there. So, okay, excellent. What about you, Nathan? What have you been up to?
Well, last night I watched the remake of Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. And I thought it was good. I liked it, but I thought that, obviously it doesn't compare to the original in many ways. For one, I thought they made a mistake of showing the creatures too much. I mean, they kind of aren't that scary when you show them, like, every few minutes. So, I mean, it kind of lost its... Like, the finale should have been the most exciting part, but really it's not that exciting because I've seen the creature so many times that I wasn't that, tense during the finale. But it's great scenery, and the house is incredible that they filmed this movie in. And, it's good cinematography. So, there are some good things about it. Just overall, it'd probably get maybe 5 or 6 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Have any of you seen it?
No, it was on actually when I was in the States in San Francisco in summer. It was on, but we didn't get to go and see it. So I like the original. The original's really good fun, isn't it? But it was a TV movie, wasn't it? The original.
I saw it, and I suppose I found it very run of the mill as well. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a shame. And last night I also watched Lucky McKee's new movie, The Woman.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved it. Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I was completely into that movie from beginning to end. And it's just one of those movies where you're just like, you don't know where it's going to go. Like what, it's very unpredictable. And I really love that about it. I'm sure you guys have heard of that one, right?
Well, I've seen it, yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of months ago. Yeah, I liked it. It was kind of interesting, sort of different kind of movie, isn't it?
Yeah, and in there, there's 2 characters in that movie, and you are dying the whole movie for them to get their comeuppance. I mean, I was sitting there like something bad has to happen to these 2, and I mean, it's going to, but you're just waiting on that moment when it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it. Maybe we should watch it on a Friday night at Grant's.
Well, Grant does love May, and that's another Lucky McKee movie, so maybe he'll like this one. I don't know.
Plus, it's a newer film, and that would satiate Jamie a little bit, I guess, if he shows up.
It's got Angela Bettis in it as well, isn't it? Who's in May. So
it does.
Yeah, no. Okay, well, no, it's interesting. You've not seen it, Eric, have you?
No, not yet. No, I am interested in seeing it though, so keep my eyes peeled.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
And the last thing I watched was after our Pieces episode, Erik was talking about the original Spanish version, and I decided to watch it with the Spanish or the English subtitles to see what the dialogue looks like then. And he's right. There are so many different, the dialogue where in a lot of scenes it's the same, and there's a lot of scenes where it's different, especially like you said, Erik, the scene where the woman they're in bed together, and the woman's saying stuff like, oh, what if you gag me? I won't make any noise then. And she's begging him to come back. In the original version, she's insulting him. She's like, you men, you're all alike. You just take what you want and leave. And that's what she's saying in that version. It's really weird how they changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How did you know it did have subtitles, the Spanish version?
Well, when Erik had mentioned it on the last podcast, I had the double disc DVD.
Oh, right.
So I just went to set up on the menu and saw it as an option. So
okay, well, that's interesting. That's the Grindhouse one, is it?
Oh,
I've got that.
And there's several scenes that's different.
What, actual scenes? Or
well, not scenes, but the dialogue in the scenes. Like the Chinese guy, he doesn't blame it on bad chop suey.
Okay, well, that's a shame, isn't it? Because that's
I know.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Nathan. And how about you, Erik? What have you been watching?
Okay, well, Justin, you'll know about this, that Netflix have just launched in UK and Ireland with a big advertising campaign, and they're offering a free 1-month trial. So I signed up for that. Now, I was really disappointed at the selection they had on offer. I don't know if it's different between the UK and Ireland, but over here, anyway, it's quite limited. Now, I did watch Humanoids from the Deep, the original 1981, which I had on DVD, but this offered a sort of a slightly better quality, full widescreen version. So I watched that. It was quite good. I had no problems technically with the service.
It's all streaming, is it?
Sorry?
It's all streaming.
All streaming, yeah. And I was just watching it on my laptop. I have a Nintendo Wii that I could connect up to the TV and watch it that way, but I wasn't that bothered really, because I have no intention of keeping the subscription up until, maybe a couple of months or a couple of years down the line. They might have a better catalogue.
Right.
But the one thing I did find that I really wanted to see was Dario Argento's Giallo. So if you're thinking about signing up to Netflix, just sign up for the month's free trial and you can get to see Giallo finally. Now, for the first 20 minutes or so, I didn't think it was as bad as everyone was making out. I thought, this is on a par with Do You Like Hitchcock and The Card Player. It was no different. I don't see what the fuss was about. But then the killer comes into the film, and he suddenly everything falls into place, and you're like, oh, that's why everyone is making fun of this film. I don't know if you. This isn't really a spoiler as such, because it's well publicized. But Adrian Brody is in it, and he plays the cop who's investigating the murders, but he also plays the killer as well, disguised under latex. And there's no reason for him to be playing the killer. I don't know what was going on there, but the latex used to disguise the fact that Adrian Brody makes him look like a character from the British comedy series Bo Selecta.
Oh, right.
And that'll mean nothing to Joseph and Nathan, but the masks they use in Bo Selecta, Justin.
Is it that bad?
It's that bad. It's really appalling. It's like some 12-year-old's little makeup experiment. It's really, really laughable. Absolutely, incredibly laughable. And, that's why the film has the reputation it has. It's just because of that. I mean, I do urge you to seek it out, because it is really funny whenever Adrian Brody's killer character is on screen, you can hear the distant sound of a cat flushing a toilet. I mean, it's really bad.
Wow.
And Dracula 3D looks like it could be even worse, hopefully.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I watched Inferno on Blu-ray the other day, and it's such a wonderful film. And just thinking, just because his budgets have gone down, you can't blame everything on that, can you?
No, you can't.
Inferno's my favorite Argento film. I love that movie.
And it looks amazing on Blu-ray as well.
It does.
Blu-ray's great. But it's Adrian Brody. Because he tried to stop the film coming out in America, didn't he?
Yeah, he's actually. I didn't know this until I saw the credits rolling. He was one of the producers as well. So it was a legal dispute over money rather than him trying to. Well, I assume rather than him trying to bury the movie because it was kind of embarrassingly bad.
Well, Adrian Brody's had a kind of bit of a strange career, isn't it? Because he started with is it Pianist or one of those, those kind of films where kind of high-end films where he's seen as the next big acting thing, and then he's kind of making increasingly bad movies, isn't he? His career just kind of really sort of nosedived. And sadly, Dario Argento is such. Well, I mean, he's a bit of a joke, isn't he?
A bit,
I hate to say that, but he is, and so that's a real shame. But yeah, that's interesting. Well, I've got Giallo. I do have a copy of it, and I've just not got myself to watch it. So maybe I will brave it at some point. I don't know.
Just keep Bo Selecta in your mind when you see the killer. It'll although it'll probably be obvious to you anyway.
Yeah, I won't be able to get that out of my image out of my head now. So.
The other thing I've recently, heard rather than seen, is that La La Land Records have brought out a box set of the soundtrack to Friday the 13th parts 1 to 6. Basically anything that Harry Manfredini is involved in. So you don't get any of the rock tracks that are featured in later films. You don't know there's no Alice Cooper or Felony or any of those. But the great thing about it is that you get a lot of the tracks that are playing on the background on stereos and stuff or on the film. Like I've sent you a clip, Justin, called Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
If you want to play that, this is a piece of music from Friday the 13th Part 5 that's playing on the stereo as Billy pulls up to the diner to take Lana out on a date.
Oh, here we go.
Lana! Sorry, Buster, we're closed. It's showtime.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing, yes.
The original soundtrack.
Hey, Eric, did you know I made that my ringtone on my phone?
Well, I know that you're very enthusiastic about that piece. I prefer Punk Funk, which is one of the songs that Tiffany Helm's character.
I love them both, actually. Yeah. I love them both, but I always found that scene just so humorous, and I always loved that music for some reason. So I was like, that's my new ringtone. So now it is.
Unfortunately, it's a limited edition box set, so it is all sold out as far as I know. I had to purchase mine off eBay, and it was a slightly inflated price, maybe an extra 20 quid, but it wasn't too bad. So, but well worth seeking out if you can, because you get literally maybe 4 or 5 hours of musical entertainment.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Well, thank you, Eric. Anything else?
No. That'd be it. I have seen lots of things, but you've caught me off guard.
Oh, well, you knew this was coming, so...
I did. Oh, do you know what I watched last night? I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind Special Edition on Blu-ray.
Okay.
The 1980 one.
Right.
Not very slasherific, I'm afraid, but one of my favourite films.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much. Let's run through a couple of things I've watched. But before I do that, something I read was the novelization of what was it? Final Exam. Have any of you guys read that?
No, I didn't even know there was a novelization of it.
I've heard of it, but I've always wanted to read it. Haven't read it yet.
And how does it compare to the film? Is there, if they tried to put more
Is it
plot
better?
character?
It's you know what it was like back in the early 80s when they did these kind of movie tie-ins. And this is no different. I mean, it's very slight. It's probably 130 pages or something, and you could read it in an afternoon pretty much. It's quite, it's not badly written. It's a weirdly written book. It's very much steeped of its time. With it goes into much more dialogue with the characters without them actually really saying anything particularly interesting. But the main character Courtney is it fleshes her out a bit more. And it has this whole thing, this bizarre thing that she plays a massive organ up in a tower, and she makes friends with an owl. So it adds these kind of strange kind of character quirks. And the character of Radish is not nearly as camp as he is in the film. He is a bit of Lothario in the book. And there's kind of slightly different things. One of the girls is having an affair with a professor. I can't remember if that's in the film. I don't think it is. And she gets killed by the killer. And the killer it doesn't really flesh him out very much, but it's he is he's got a wedding ring on, and it talks a little bit about. It just kind of hints at his kind of psychosis, and doesn't really actually give him any motive at all. But the book ends a little bit like the film, but the book ends with Courtney being chased around this big bell tower, a bit like kind of Vertigo, by the killer, and then somebody comes to save her, also gets killed by the killer, but she manages to off the killer at the end. So there's some different bits in there, but yeah, it's not a bad read. But I've also picked up the Friday the 13th Part 3 3D novel by Michael Avallone, which I remember when I was at school back in about 1983 or 84. It's one of those books that was passed around the schoolyard, and so I've finally managed to pick up a copy of it, and also picked up a copy of the April Fool's Day novel as well. And I'm kind of looking forward to reading that, because I believe that has a kind of complete extra kind of closing section, doesn't it?
I don't like that book.
You don't like it?
No.
You read it?
Because the characters in April Fool's Day, the movie, are so likable, but in the book, it really goes out of its way to make them obnoxious.
Right.
Like, the characters are very obnoxious in the book.
I mean, does it kind of add anything with this kind of extra sort of ending, which they filmed, didn't they, which has just never been released?
Yeah, I mean, it uses that ending for the book.
I mean, it's similar with the Friday the 13th Part 3 3D book. It uses the ending where Chris Kimmel gets decapitated, which I shall look forward to reading. But those are just a couple of the books I'm reading. The other, just run quickly through some of the films I've watched. I mean, kind of all touching on the kind of slasher movie basis. I mean, the first one we have the Horror Channel in the UK. I don't know if you get that in Ireland.
No, sadly not. Well, you can on Sky, I think, but I'm on NTL UPC.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's kind of it's actually getting a bit better, actually. I mean, it's got all of the kind of sci-fi original kind of crappy. I saw a Killer Wasp movie on there the other day and stuff, but it's showing kind of a lot of older films now, which is good. And one of them was The Beast Must Die, which is Amicus's last ever film, and it's a werewolf film with Peter Cushing in it, and it's kind of a mixture of blaxploitation film. But the only reason I mention it is I remember seeing it used to be on BBC One of their horror late night double bills. I didn't really like it back then, but it's quite fun. I mean, it's really bad. It's quite very camp. But it's the film. It's got the werewolf break where you kind of stop halfway through, well, towards the end, and then it gives you a countdown, and you've got to try and guess who the werewolf is. Have any of you ever seen that?
I've seen that. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just kind of it's just fun. I mean, it's very silly, and it's no wonder it's Amicus's last film. It's kind of it's kind of whiffs of desperation, but it's good fun. One of the other films I saw was Retreat, which was from last year, which is got Cillian Murphy. I presume, is that how you pronounce his name? Or was it
Killian.
Killian, sorry. Thandie Newton and Jamie Bell, and it's pretty much a three character driven story, and it's it kind of touches on the part of the way through, because it's basically a story of a couple, Cillian Murphy and Thandie Newton, who go back to a Scottish island, completely isolated. And then where they had a kind of happy time 10 years before, and their marriage is breaking down, but they've got no access to the outside world apart from a CB radio, and then so this basically they're on this island. No one else lives on this island. It's just the house. And then Jamie Bell turns up, all bloodied, and he says he's a soldier, and there's been a massive kind of outbreak of disease on the mainland. And he says that the world's gone to hell, and to protect themselves from people who are going to be coming over to try and take the house. And then it kind of turns into a kind of bit of a psychodrama. But it's quite a clever film. Although it's not great, it does it kind of does various things, and there's various twists in it. So it's kind of worth checking out. I take it no one else has seen it.
No, not yet. But I didn't that get a sort of simultaneous DVD and theatrical release in the UK?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I only caught it on DVD. So I mean, it's no great shakes, but it's a decent time waster, and it keeps you guessing, and it's got some good twists and turns in it. So and just quickly, the other film I saw finally caught up with was Saint, which is the Dutch Killer Santa movie. I don't know if that's anybody seen that?
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a comedy horror, but it's not bad. It's got like quite a creepy Santa Claus, but it's kind of supernatural, sort of based with Santa kind of rushing across all the rooftops in Amsterdam on a sleigh, being dragged by horses, and the police kind of chasing him and stuff. And but it's a real kind of old school, where Saint Nick is actually some like evil saint who preys on children and kills them at Christmas. So it's worth a watch. It's not great, but it's worth a watch. So, but that's pretty much what I've been watching. So hopefully, if you're listening, that's given you a few ideas. There's something, if any of those sounded good, check them out. Let us know what you think about them. But I think it's time, isn't it? We get on to our top three, which we're going to be doing slasher movie locations. So we've all chosen 3 films each, and we're going to talk about why we think they make the perfect location for a slasher movie. And first up is going to be Nathan.
Hospital Massacre, a.k.a. X-Ray, a.k.a. Be My Valentine or Else. And it obviously set in a hospital. And the reason I picked this hospital as opposed to any of the other slasher movies that use hospitals, it's just something about this hospital is creepy to me, especially like the floor where they're renovating, and like the scene where the doctor is called up to that floor. And I don't know, it's just like, it's just a really weird, dark, depressing hospital. And I don't know, I mean, it's very like dimly lit, and I love how deserted the hospital is, but I haven't been in a hospital that's been that deserted, but I still think they use that location really well.
And also probably been in a hospital where you go into a room with kind of 3 old ladies talking sort of like the witches from Macbeth, talking about green slime and stuff, which is kind of a very strange scene, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, they do remind me of the witches from Macbeth. They're the ones that go with the double, toil and trouble. Yeah. How does your garden grow? With Taco Bells and silver shells.
Yes,
that's it. Yeah.
But it's kind of like poor Bobby Benton. She spends half the film having her breasts examined, and then the other half of the film being chased by, sort of like somebody kind of dressed as a doctor, and then she gets menaced by
go ahead.
crones. No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, what's funny to me is I've watched it with friends before who think that her character is kind of a bitch, but in her situation, I think I would be a bit of a bitch too. I mean, they're not letting her leave the hospital. I'd be like, if I want to leave, then let me leave.
It was strange. Was it shot in Israel, wasn't it? Or partly shot in Israel?
I didn't know that.
I think it was an Israeli production, wasn't it? Well, Boaz Davidson, or whatever his name was, the director, he did, was it Lemon Popsicle?
He did the Lemon Popsicle films, which were remade as The Last American Virgin. actually.
And they were set in the States, weren't they? But filmed in Israel. And
Yeah.
I've got a feeling, don't quote me on this, but I've got a feeling that part of Hospital Massacre was shot in Israel, which may be the reason why it all looks a bit weird, that it doesn't quite fit together. Like, it's not, it's a bit like, there's quite a few films, aren't there? Like the Fulci films, which, like his kind of gothic, or the zombie films, like House by Cemetery, and those kind of films are always slightly kind of weird feeling because they're not actually shot by an American. So it's kind of that slightly otherworldly, off-kilter feeling to them. And I kind of get that, with Hospital Massacre, it's got that, hasn't it?
Kind of works in its favor, actually.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, I've got a feeling we're probably going to overlap a little bit on the on some of the locations, but I think hospitals are, a great location, and I won't ask Erik what he thinks because I think I've got a feeling you might be talking about another similar location.
I could, yes.
Yes, well, I'm clairvoyant, you see.
Terms of endearment is my number 3.
Indeed.
Terrifying.
Terrifying. Well, absolutely terrifying. Well, thank you, Nathan, for your number 3. Joseph.
All right, well, the reason I picked Cutting Class above other films with school locations is that it's probably the only movie to actually use, like, school subjects and classrooms and different aspects of school into the plot. Like, for instance, there's an art teacher who gets baked alive inside of a giant kiln, and then they always have the janitor character, mopping up blood, and then they have the big chase scene through the halls at the end of the school, and then they kind of have that climactic battle inside of shop class where they use every single instrument in that class to kind of fight each other. I mean, there's other films that are a little more atmospheric with the school location, but I've always loved Cutting Class because I love how they just kind of implement every little facet of school into that, and I always found it, to be an underrated film in that aspect.
So what do you guys think? How about you, Nathan?
I like the fact that a student stumped the teacher because the teacher didn't account for the difference in time zones.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the school. I think a school is a great setting for a horror movie. Now, I do tend to go for the more scarier location, as I don't think Cutting Class uses the school in a scary way, but I do understand what Joseph's saying because it does utilize like all kinds of different aspects of the school. I mean, everything you think of, art class, shop class, math, the gym. I mean, it does use the setting to its full advantage.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Erik?
Well, I haven't seen Cutting Class for a long time, so I can't really comment. But I do like the use of schools in slasher movies, like in Prom Night, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, same here. I've not seen Cutting Class for a long time, and I think it's one that we probably will cover at some point in the podcast. Not too distant.
Maybe we could get Brad Pitt to do an interview.
Yeah, I've already interviewed him, so we already have him.
Oh, right,
okay.
Him and his wife.
I'm sure Donovan Leitch isn't probably doing very much at the moment, is he?
I tried him. He never wrote back.
Well, yes. Well, I mean, I think schools and colleges are a kind of great setting for slashers. I mean, it's just all those kind of endless dorms, isn't it, and the corridors, and and it kind of reminds me of that Australian movie Blood Moon. Have any of you seen that?
Yes.
No.
Which has kind of got some great sort of chase scenes in a school, isn't it? With two girls. I haven't seen it for a long time, but I remember sort of two girls sort of trapped in a chemistry class when they kind of realise who the killer is, and I think it kind of there's a really good chase scene there. But yeah, it's kind of perfect time. It's that whole thing, as far as I'm concerned. This is kind of similar for a few of at least one of my picks, where you've got a place that should be safe for people. It's where people send their children to be looked after by other people, and then they end up getting killed. And so you're turning a place of safety into something entirely different, something far more sinister. And and I think that's kind of why a lot of the slasher movie locations work, because they invert areas that are supposedly safe, and they take one location and turn it into something entirely different and give it a completely sinister twist. So yeah, that's great. And thank you, Joseph. Erik.
That's, of course, Intruder, which uses a just sort of everyday corner supermarket as its location. I was trying to think of other slasher films that utilize that, and the only one that I could think of off the top of my head was there's sort of a prolonged sequence in the My Bloody Valentine remake that's set in a store. But maybe there's others I'm missing, but I just think they use the location really well. I mean, there's obviously you can use the aisles and the as places for the killer to hide and create a sense of menace. But what they also do is use sort of the back rooms, the offices, the meat lockers, because it provides all kinds of a myriad of murder weapons for the murderer to use: kitchen knives, meat slicers, meat cleavers, meat hooks, trash compactors. Everything possibly they can use is used as a murder weapon in the film. That's what I like about it, is just that it makes the most of its location. It's quite an open space. I'd like to see a slasher movie set in one of those really, really large supermarkets, which are kind of like a maze of aisles and nooks and crannies. That would be really interesting. I suppose Dawn of the Dead would be a close sort of, relative to that. It's set in a shopping mall. But a slasher's loose in a supermarket, and it's set sort of during the night. So the workers are locked into the supermarket. The key is missing, so they're kind of stuck there, much in the same way as the actors in Stage Fright. I just think they utilised the location really well. I got the Blu-ray recently, actually. Finally, I was waiting 3 weeks for it to be shipped from Amazon for it to arrive on my doorstep. That's the new Blu-ray from Synapse, and it's absolutely excellent. Great selection of extras on it, and a great quality print.
Has it got the original Night Crew?
The 8mm version. What happened was the Scott Spiegel lent the 8mm version to a friend and never got it back, and now he doesn't know where it is. But he has about 6 minutes of footage from it on the DVD, on the Blu-ray. And it's very much in the same vein. You get to see, I think it mightn't be Sam Raimi, but you get to see somebody's head sliced in half by the meat slicer, but this time from sort of top to bottom rather than side to side.
Right.
But no, I do think, because they obviously put a lot of thought into it. They're saying, oh, okay, we can kill somebody with this. It's not just somebody going around with a price gun. They're utilising every sort of aspect of a supermarket.
Okay, yeah, no, it sounds great. I mean, I'm sure Nathan and Joseph have seen Intruder, but have you seen?
I love Intruder. But I just want to make I think the original title is a lot better. The Night Crew, The Final Checkout. It's so much better than Intruder.
Yeah.
So I've got an old copy. Do you remember Ghoul Zone? Not the crappy British magazine.
Yeah, the Fangoria spin-off. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it wasn't Ghoul Zone. It was Deep Red, which was the Chaz Ballon magazine, which I used to get back in the late 80s, I kind of guess, early 90s, and she had like a poster for the film under the title Night Crew, The Final Checkout, and it had somebody on a conveyor, like sitting at a till with that kind of conveyor belt in front of them, and they were like putting things through the checkout, and there was a severed head on there. And it's like a black and white poster, which was really cool.
That sounds like a much better poster than what we got. Yeah. I mean, the VHS artwork for it is not that great, and
not only that, it spoils.
Yes,
spoils the killer's identity.
The trailer spoils it too. I don't understand. The movie is a whodunit, and every piece of advertising for this movie gives away who the killer is.
Yeah. I mean, it's daft, isn't it? I mean, it's just going back to the location, I mean, I think it's a great location, and you're right. I mean, I think that sequence in the My Bloody Valentine remake was probably the best sequence in that film. But I kind of guess there's other, there isn't any other supermarket ones I can think of, but there's certainly, as you touched on, like say in Dawn of the Dead, they did the whole shopping mall. But of course, there's Chopping Mall and the Initiation.
Well, they did that in Scream, where Tatum and Sidney are shopping, and then you see Ghostface reflection in the like the ice cream doors or something in the freezer doors. They did it briefly.
And I guess they did it in I Know What You Did Last Summer, didn't they, with the department store?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And of course, the other film I'm thinking of is the kind of little watched Hide and Go Shriek.
Love that movie.
Yeah, which again was set in a kind of department store, isn't it? So interesting choice, Erik. Thank you very much. So that's Death Valley. It's one of the kind of pretty much underappreciated slashers. It kind of missed the slash movie boom. It came out in 1982, and it's distinctive for a couple of reasons. One is the main protagonist is a little boy, which you didn't really get much of in slash movies. And I think it's got Catherine Hickson, who went on to be in Child's Play movies. But the main setting is the desert, obviously Death Valley. And I think it works really well because for the most slash movies, everything's set at night, so you've got the blackness and shadows and everything hiding. But literally in the sunshine in Death Valley, everything you basically there's nowhere to hide in the desert, and so it kind of actually makes a curiously effective slash movie setting, I thought. And it's got a few good set pieces. I mean, it's got I think it's got a kind of a scene in a kind of wax museum. Where the killer starts stalking the little boy and his mother, and it's one of those. It's also got really good scenes in the motel and various things. It's not a classic movie by any stretch, but it's a kind of pre-shadows, foreshadows, whatever films like The Hitcher, and also it kind of takes probably from films like Jewel. Another, the Spielberg film, and also I can't remember the film. Who's the woman in Rhonda? Who's not Jessica? What's her name? The name escapes me. Do you know who I'm talking about? The old she was in the sitcom Rhonda.
Rhonda.
Was it Rhonda?
Familiar.
I've never heard of Rhonda.
Jessica, what's her name? It's basically that proto slasher that's kind of a rip off of Jewel, and I can't remember her name now. She was.
Is it Night Terror?
Night Terror, that's the one I'm thinking of, yeah. I mean, it's a similar thing, because that's set in the desert, isn't it, with what's her name? Jessica...
Rhoda. Oh, it's Rhoda's what you mean.
Rhoda,
yeah, Rhoda.
Okay.
Yeah. What's her name? I can't...
Let me have a look.
Yeah.
Valerie Harper?
Valerie Harper,
that's what I'm thinking of.
Valerie Harper.
That's what I was thinking of, Jessica Harper. Yeah, sorry. So I think I'm very confused. But that was set in this kind of mostly in the desert, wasn't it, with her being chased by a killer in a car. And it's kind of... I just kind of like that whole thing a bit. And also, because deserts are pretty underpopulated, a bit like woods. So you've got, nowhere to hide, nothing to hide in, and also you're on your own. So I think it works pretty well as a kind of slasher movie location. So have you guys seen Death Valley?
Yes.
Yes. I like the location. I wasn't as crazy about the film maybe as you. I thought it was a good movie, but not great. But I do agree in the location. I like the fact that it's wide open and there's really nowhere to run to. I mean, you're just basically running straight through, a lot of open areas. So I do like that aspect a lot.
Cool. Okay. Right. Well, I think, are we ready? I mean, unless you guys have got any more thoughts about deserts. Are you ready for the introduction? Sorry?
Give it to me. I'm ready.
You're ready. Well, I've actually got a cat on the lap at the moment, so I don't know if you can hear. Let's see if I can get her purring. Let's listen. Can you hear this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's hot. Some hot pussy action right there.
Oh, she's got on the keyboard. Hold on. See, Biscuit, come on. Off now, because, sorry, it's just all going to go horribly wrong, because I know something's going to go stop. Oh, she's launched iTunes, so it might all go horribly wrong, but...
she wants to download the new Madonna single.
She must be the only person who does. Have you actually heard it? I haven't heard it yet.
It's just her usual, disposable pop. Nothing too inoffensive.
Okay, right. Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. I haven't got rid of Seabiscuit. She's still sitting here, but she's restrained away from the keyboard. So just like the poodle in what's the Sybil Danning movie?
Oh yes. They're playing with fire. Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh. Well, there's no pussy bondage here, but what we do have is.
My number 2 is The Ghost Town from Scream, a.k.a. The Outing. I've always thought this setting was utilized really, really well. It's very creepy. It's I don't know, something about a ghost town. During the day everything seems fine, but it's just when night falls. Obviously no electricity or anything. I don't know. I think I would be, even if nothing crazy was going on, I would be really creeped out if I was with that group in that weird ghost town. And the fact that they're stranded and they're out in the middle of nowhere, I think it's a great idea for a setting.
I agree. It's a great idea for a setting. I'm not mad about the film, but I haven't seen. Didn't it get a DVD release? Didn't it? Relatively
Yes,
recently.
it did.
Yeah, recently. I actually love the film. I mean, I know it's slow and it's not really well made. I mean, it actually really is well made, but it's kind of I guess you could say really out. It doesn't really have much of a plot, but I love the setting. I love the fact that there's just something there that it doesn't pop out of the page, but it's something there. That setting really is great. I love going through the whole POV shots of whatever the killer is, just kind of grabbing weapons off the wall and then stalking through the ghost town. Going to the saloon where the people are hiding. I don't know. It's just really atmospheric.
What about you, Eric? What's your thoughts?
No, I'd be sort of halfway between Nathan and Joseph. I do think it's a fantastic location, and the film is dripping with atmosphere. I would like it if it had slightly more of a cohesive plot, because it goes off on too many tangents and doesn't really tie things up at the end. I just found it a bit too offbeat. But yeah, like the location is fantastic.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Nathan, for your number 2. And I think, without further ado, Joseph, I think you'll get a little dose of...
I chose Rituals because it's not just the woods in general, but just the wilderness. I think that film captures it probably as best as it can be captured, if not the best. I just love, they trek through the woods and then they get into the river and through the rocks and through the cliffs and the mountains and all the landscape of the whole wasteland towards the when they get to the power supply station or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, these people go through hell. I mean, through every aspect of the woods. I mean, they go through hell. And it just, I don't know, it's so atmospheric and it's so well shot. And it's a really great film that, utilizes that whole wilderness aspect really well, I think.
No, I agree. What about you, Erik?
Yeah, actually, this is, now that I think of it, this is one of my recently seen, because I just purchased the Code Red DVD of Rituals on eBay. I got it quite cheap. It's a film I really, really like. It's very much in, that Wrong Turn, Hills of Eyes type mold, which it's a kind of a subgenre of slashers that I really, really enjoy. I think the DVD itself, the print isn't great. It's very scratchy in that, but it is in its original aspect ratio, so you get to see the wilderness in all its glory. It's terrific, and I love films from an era pre-mobile phone where you really get a sense that people are isolated and have to fend for themselves.
Absolutely. What about you, Nathan?
Oh, I love the setting. I think it's really good. The woods is a really, really creepy setting, and there are so many movies that use the woods, but not a whole lot that utilize it effectively. And Rituals is one of the ones that actually is very effective with the setting as well. And I have to say, I actually really, really like that trailer, because I've always been a fan of using like upbeat stuff amongst carnage, kind of like a counterbalance. I don't know. It just works for me.
Well, it's kind of, isn't it Don't Go in the Woods Alone uses
yeah.
Teddy Picnic, doesn't it, at the end as well?
Yes, and that's awesome too.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things you could say about that film, but also
that it's incredible.
Nathan actually used to hate Rituals, didn't you?
I actually didn't hate it, but I thought it was vastly overrated. But I watched it again, and my opinion has changed on it. I think it's actually really, really good.
I think what they do great in it is that it does make the forest seem really, really vast. Whatever, I don't know what techniques they use, but you really feel like they're in the middle of this huge forest, miles from civilization.
Like they're just walking and walking forever. I mean,
yeah,
it really captures that feeling really well.
I think it's interesting, isn't it, with the difference between the way that woods are used in this, because it's like something like Just Before Dawn as well, where the woods are kind of almost imbued with some kind of strangeness that's kind of different from other films that use woods, in so much that it's almost like there's some other force at play in Rituals apart from the killer.
Yeah, if I could go back, I mean, I don't remember which episode it was, but I'd picked Rituals for some reason in one of our top threes, and I'd made a mention how the woods in this film, or the wilderness in this film, felt like it was, like another world or another planet almost, like they've been transported to some other universe, and it really has that feeling.
Okay, well, no, interesting. Well, thank you, Joseph, for your number 2. I'm just aware of time, so hopefully we're not going to be another massive epic like we were last week, although hopefully you enjoyed our big pieces. But here we go.
No, of course. I mean, I've waxed lyrical about Halloween 2 many times on this podcast, so apologies for going over it again. I was surprised that Nathan chose X-Ray over Halloween 2 for a hospital setting. For me, Halloween 2 captures it much better. Again, you have to, as Nathan was saying, you have to suspend your disbelief and sort of just accept that you know, the only patients in this hospital are Jamie Lee Curtis and maybe a couple of newborn babies and the staff. That's all there is there. I mean, it has this huge hospital for this small town. It's you know, you have to really suspend your disbelief. A lot of people have a problem with that. But I mean, what you get with the hospital is lots of shadowy corridors, lots of alcoves, lots of empty patient rooms for the shape to hide in and, you know, to emerge from the shadows. Along with that, along with sort of hiding places and places for them to, you know, appear out of the darkness, you get lots of murder implements as well. You get scalpels, syringes, you know, an overheated hydrotherapy pool. So it utilizes the location really, really well. I think, of course, you have it's not all set in a hospital. The first 30 minutes or so is still within Haddonfield. So you don't get bored of the hospital location. And because the hospital is so big, it never feels too samey or too claustrophobic. So yeah, the hospital from Halloween 2 would be my number 2.
Okay, no, well, that's interesting. I mean, Nathan, what do you think? The difference between the two films.
Well, I love Halloween 2 setting in the hospital. I agree with Erik. I like the dark corridors and I like that they, utilize that stairwell. I always love the shots of Michael Myers walking down the stairwell in Halloween 2. I think the only reason I went with Hospital Massacre is I just like the differences in location. Like, I like the guy getting killed, like, in the X-ray room, and I like the guy in the basement where the files are at. And I don't know, I thought that Hospital Massacre used a little bit more variety in all the different rooms. But I mean, Halloween 2 is excellent.
Sorry, we've got a little bit of interference there. Is that you? Yeah. It sounds like we can hear some, like, we're picking up a police radio. I don't know if we are.
I think it's just an echo of Nathan.
Okay. Well, it's not too bad. So sorry, Nathan, carry on.
Oh, I was just saying, Halloween 2 is excellent. It's really good too. So I mean, I can't say anything bad about it.
Okay.
I think that with Nathan is he's more esoteric than me. I'm more traditional meat and potatoes type person when it comes to slashers. The boring vanilla person.
I'm very caviar.
Well, I wouldn't say caviar.
No, I'm not very upscale.
Well, before we
it's like a Twinkie or whatever they're called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get into fisticuffs, Joseph, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love Halloween 2. I love the hospital setting. I like hospital settings in general. I also loved it in Visiting Hours. I thought they did a really good job in Visiting Hours. But Halloween 2, I love the long hallways and I love the hydrotherapy pool. I don't know who I would pick between Halloween 2 and Hospital Massacre because I think they both do a really good job of the locations. It seems like Hospital Massacre goes out of its way to be as kind of atmospheric as possible, whereas Halloween 2, just does it subtly and it works. So, I mean, they both work. I mean, I can't really pick a favorite, but I like the both of them, actually, yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Erik. I'm going to take things forward a little bit in time, and of course, before I do that, triangle. And let me just preface this by saying that obviously, I don't think it's the best location for a slash movie necessarily, and a lot of the other ones have already been chosen. But I do think boats and specifically deserted liners are a underutilized location for a slasher movie. Because essentially what you have is you're trapped literally in the floating. If you're in the middle of the ocean, you're trapped on a boat with no way of getting off unless there's lifeboats. And also there's endless, like, long dark corridors with endless identical rooms off them. And so I think it works really well as a kind of a location. And it hasn't really been utilised. I mean, I think apart from Triangle, I can't think of another slasher movie. I mean,
Jason Takes Manhattan.
Well, yes, of course. No, you're right. Yes, of course. That spent half the film, didn't it, on a kind of a boat? But yes, no, you're right. That's another one I hadn't thought of. But I mean, there's Dead Calm, isn't there, which is kind of more on like a yacht, and there's
Blood Voyage.
Blood Voyage, yeah, which again is kind of like on a yacht. I mean, there's films like Deep Rising,
Savage Water.
Well, not really, that's a bit of a push, isn't it? That's a bit of a stretch.
Life rafts or whatever.
The Burning.
Yeah, I know we're stretching it a bit here, but I think. But would you like to? I mean, apart from obviously, like you say, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Triangle, for all its, I mean, it flirts with the slasher movie, really, doesn't it? Rather than, I think you make an argument that it is a kind of slasher movie, or it certainly flirts with some of the conventions. But I would like to see a full-on slash movie set on an abandoned liner.
The Costa Concordia.
Maybe not, but yes. What about you?
You should have made Titanic a slasher film.
That would have been great, wouldn't it? Have you watched Titanic 2?
No, I've seen it crops up on Sci-Fi Channel a lot, but I haven't watched.
Oh, is it one of those movies?
Yeah,
it's one of those movies where they on the anniversary they take a replica of Titanic on the voyage, and then an iceberg collapses and sends a tsunami, which sinks the Titanic too. I've seen clips of it, but I haven't watched the whole thing. Understandably, life's too short.
Yeah. Does it star Tiffany or Debbie Gibson?
I would watch it if it did, because aren't they doing a Tiffany versus Debbie movie, or has that already been made? Wasn't
that in Mega Shark versus the Python?
Giant octopus or something? Yeah.
Yes, but no, I don't know if I've seen that, but I mean that's my number 2 even. Sorry, Triangle. So
excellent movie.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
It is a great movie.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a slasher, but it's a film I
It's
really
not really a slasher, I kind of guess. Well, it is. It's a bit of a slasher, isn't it? Because it starts off. It could easily veer into a slasher movie, and there's a lot of slashing going on it, isn't there? Lots of knives and dead people.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of bodies.
Lots of dead people.
I love that scene. I love that scene of the replicas of that woman surrounded by the seagulls, where she crawls. She crawls into some kind of corner of the boat.
Yeah.
She's been stabbed, and there's lots of replicas of her.
Mm-hmm.
Really eerie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, that's my number 2. And as time is marching on, we shall, without further ado or fanfare, here's Nathan's number 1 top choice for slasher movie location. So, Nathan, why do you choose Hell Night as your number 1?
Well, I chose it because I think Garth Manor is an amazing setting for a slasher movie. I mean, the giant mansion is great enough, but when you add to that the caverns underneath, the big maze outside, the fact that the entire property is surrounded by this gate, with the big spikes on the top of the gate, where you'd have a difficult time climbing over it, as the characters do. Just all that combined just makes for a great setting. I mean, there's so many places to run and to hide. I love it. Great setting.
Cool. How about you, Erik? What's your thoughts on?
Well, yeah, I love it. I love the setting is pure Mario Bava. It's it's real Gothic mansion, and it's an interesting idea to sort of merge a sort of Mario Bava setting with a slasher movie. I think it works really well, and also I think that Linda Blair's boobs could be considered a slasher movie setting in their own right.
yeah, absolutely. What about you, Joseph?
Oh yeah, great setting. I love, it's a mansion, so obviously they're going to have like little nooks and crannies and little trap doors, and they have the one where they're in the bedroom, and all of a sudden you see the rug come up from off the floor, and he's coming through the killer is coming through a trap door. Yeah, I mean, that really freaked me out. It really is a good setting. I mean, it even has the underground kind of old rock caverns under the house where the one girl gets her, she gets decapitated. I mean, everything, they throw in everything into that manor. I mean, it really is well shot, and it's a good, very good location.
Yeah, and also it's got the maze outside as well, isn't it? Which is it's got that great that great sort of idea of having us, obviously probably inspired by The Shining, I imagine. But being chased around the maze by a killer with a scythe is pretty good as well. So well, thank you, Nathan, for your number one. Good choice. And Joseph, why is Terror Train even number one?
Well, I love the idea of being trapped on this train that's moving, so there's really nowhere to go. And it's really narrow. There's not a whole lot of room to maneuver. I mean, there's plenty of places to hide, yes, but I mean, it's basically just one end to another. So, if the killer is behind you, you can run straight, and that's it. I've always liked that setting. I also like the fact that when the train stops, they have the chance to get away. But since it's so cold and snowy outside, they'll probably freeze to death if they don't get back on the train. So they're pretty much trapped. It's just a really good, it utilizes the whole claustrophobia and isolation really well.
No, I agree. I mean, it's similar kind of setting to a boat, isn't it? There's nowhere to go, really, is there? Even less places on a train. Yeah. How about you guys? What about you, Erik?
Yeah, I love Terror Train, probably more for the fact that I'm just such a Jamie Lee Curtis fanboy that, you could throw her into a white room with a white chair and a white table and I still think the movie was fantastic. But no, as you say, Terror Train, because it's a moving vehicle, jumping out of it isn't an option. So it does provide plenty of suspense potential.
What about you, Nathan?
Yes, I think that the train is an amazing setting, and also the movie is helped a lot by the music too. I mean, the music in that movie combined with the setting just makes for some really, really creepy, tense scenes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Another great location. I think it's kind of locations where you're trapped, and train is, especially, it's kind of literally, there's no way. If you're kind of going down an aisle, aren't you? You've got compartments to one side, or maybe both sides, but usually just one side. But there's nowhere else to go, is there, apart from forwards and backwards? And if you've got, you're trapped at one end, you've got a killer behind you. And we'll probably talk about a scene in Dressed to Kill, which is kind of, although it's not on the train, it's on a tube, but it's a similar kind of thing. So, good choice. Thank you, Joseph. And Erik?
Well, just proving that I am completely vanilla in my choice of favourite slasher movies. That's, of course, Friday the 13th. I just like the woodsy summer camp setting. I think what they achieve really well is a sense of being trapped in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like with Rituals, there's a real sense that this is a vast forest that they're in the middle of. And along with that, I think, like as with Rituals, I think the surroundings are really picturesque. So even if you weren't that engaged in the film, you could just admire the beauty of the location. The camp itself, I think, looks really run down. Now, I know they have a week or so to fix it up, but I don't think if I had kids, thankfully I don't, if I had kids, I don't think I'd be spending good money to send them to this camp that has like these really, really tatty archery targets and, it rains all the time, so they'd probably have to be stuck indoors in these horrible cabins that look like they don't have central heating. But, I think that it's a perfect location for a slasher movie. I mean, as I said, this is pre-mobile phone. So once Mrs. Voorhees cuts the phones off, Alice has nowhere to go. She has no one to contact. She's stuck in the middle of this rain-struck forest, being chased by a psychotic killer. And, there's so many cabins, there's woods, there's plenty of places for killers to hide or for potential victims to hide. I just think it's the perfect location. And I mean, all those first 4 Fridays, well, maybe Fridays 1, 2, and 4, I think part 3 maybe is not quite as atmospheric. I think they really grabbed that sort of being lost in the woods atmosphere really, really well.
Cool. Okay. For me, I kind of it has that difference between what we talked about before with the difference between something like Just Before Dawn and Rituals and Friday the 13th, where the woods aren't exactly a character, actually. In fact, I think the woods are a character in the other films. In Friday the 13th, they're not. They're kind of background, but certainly no less effective. I think they're very effective. But the summer camp, I think, is great, and it's that whole idea which we talked about before, is turning something that's designed to look after children from a kind of a place of pleasure and fun to a charnel house, and turning literally from night to day.
Well, we don't really have summer camps in Ireland as such. I don't know if you have them in the UK. I think they're kind of an American thing, are they?
Yeah, they are. Well, it's kind of a way of, isn't it? Just a way of sending away annoying children for the summer, which I think is a great idea. I mean, thankfully I don't have children either, but if I had children, I think what a wonderful idea to send away the little brats to summer camp and, hopefully not hopefully get murdered, but you never know your luck. So, Joseph and Nathan, what are your thoughts?
I love Friday the 13th. I love the summer camp. I think the summer camp in and of itself is a character. The multiple cabins. Like the woods, you have trees to climb up or you have rocks to hide behind. You have a lot of places to hide in the cabins, but I mean, if the killer knows the cabins better than you do, then you're pretty much SOL. I think Friday the 13th, really captures that. I mean, for a while they don't even know there's a killer there until the body count starts to mount, and obviously this killer really knows their way around these cabins because of who they are. But yeah, I agree. It's a very effective setting.
Cool.
What does SOL mean?
Shit
out of luck.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm not that trendy. I told you I was
such a sheltered life, Eric.
I know.
I doubt the nuns.
If you'd said DOA, I would have known.
You need some chocolate.
Yeah, that's it.
And Nathan, what do you think? What's your thoughts on summer camps?
I agree with what everybody else has said, because I mean, I like the fact that it uses the cabins and the woods and like the archery range. I mean, it just uses a whole wide variety of things. I would have liked to have seen a death in the mess hall, but I'm not going to be too picky here.
What I like also about it is that death's happening in broad daylight. Much like you were saying, Justin, with Death Valley, it's unusual for slasher films to have that much happening during daylight hours. And I think those first Friday the 13th films managed to make sort of daylight woodsy locations creepy. Because that murder of Annie at the start, I think, is as creepy as anything else in the film.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, I think it's it's a classic, isn't it? And if you're talking about plain vanilla, my number one choice doesn't get any more plain vanilla. It's probably even more, not bland, but more vanilla than yours. But I also just very quickly say we're obviously having a few sound issues on this podcast, so please forgive us. Obviously, we're using Skype in 2 continents, so across thousands of miles, and hopefully it's not affecting anything too badly. But these things come and go. So thank you, Eric, for your number one. And as a companion piece, pretty much, yes, The Night He Came Home, of course, the classic Halloween. And my location is suburbia, and I think the Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, does a lot of things very, very well. But one of them, again, is this inverting places that are safe, and one of them is suburbia, which is kind of basically where the middle classes live, and you got the aspirational lifestyle, and then of course what you do, you invade it. Literally, evil comes, floods over the white picket fences, and it's been done in lots of films before, I can guess, and lots of films since. But I think it's done so well in Halloween, and I think one of the things I seem to remember is it was kind of inspired partly by a true life case where a girl I think she was either raped or murdered in New York, and the people, her neighbours, ignored her cries and didn't come to her aid. And I think that was the inspiration for one of the scenes, the classic scene, obviously, with Jamie Lee Curtis, is escaping or running away from Michael Myers, and her neighbours either just don't care or think it's a joke. And so you've got this kind of weird thing, and of course it's all wrapped up in the time when it was filmed, and the difference between the American dream of the 1950s, which kind of got slightly, well, it kind of started to fall apart in the 60s in some ways, and by the 70s, with punk and all these kind of things, that you got to the point where things were very different. So although you have this idea that suburbia and everything is very normal and everything happening there is very, very kind of conservative, it's kind of inverted by this kind of inversion of evil, and in some ways it's something that kind of someone like David Lynch did with Blue Velvet and took it even further in that direction. So yeah, that's my number one, suburbia. So I guess you've all seen Halloween, would I be right?
I don't know. No.
Rob Zombie did a fantastic version updating of it.
Oh, I've seen that. It's brilliant. Yeah.
No, we jest, but yeah, no, I mean, I was trying to think what other films there's. I mean, I suppose Nightmare on Elm Street is a kind of another suburban horror film, isn't it? Or slasher film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry, I've stopped it dead. Has anyone got anything else to say about it, or have I whittled on to?
I agree about the whole thing.
What can you say about it? Yeah.
I agree about the whole, your house is your sanctuary. It's where you're most safe, and then to have something come in and just kind of interrupt your safeness is just kind of, I think Halloween does that better than just about any other film.
Yep.
Halloween does a lot.
You're so vanilla.
So vanilla.
Yeah.
But, okay, well, I think that's the end of our top three. So I think we're probably going to move on to our feature presentation. What do you reckon, guys?
Do you find me attractive?
Of course.
Would you want to sleep with me?
Yes.
Then why don't you?
Because I love my wife, and it isn't worth jeopardizing my marriage.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been so rude. Thank you for picking up.
Tell them about Bobby. I wanted to talk to her first.
Brian De Palma, the master of the macabre, who shocked audiences everywhere with Sisters, Carrie, Obsession, and The Fury, now invites you to a showing of the latest fashion in murder. Dressed to Kill. Michael Caine, Angie Dickinson, Nancy Allen, Dressed to Kill. Murder made to order.
Okay, that's the trailer there to Brian De Palma's controversial 1980 thriller, semi-slasher. I'll get into that later, Dressed to Kill. The film starts straight into the shagging, if you'll pardon the use of the language, with Kate, played by Angie Dickinson, fantasizing about being taken roughly from behind by a stranger in the shower. And then we cut immediately to the mundane reality of being given a lackluster scene to by her husband. So all's not well in the bedroom for Kate. But on the plus side, she has a great relationship as a mother to her science-mad son, Peter, who's played by Keith Gordon, who we all recognise from Jaws 2 and Christine. Michael Caine plays Kate's psychologist, Dr. Robert Elliott, who she flirts shamelessly with. Her quest for a good bit of rumpo leads to her picking up a stranger in an art gallery. However, to her post-coital shock, she discovers the guy she has just done the horizontal mambo with has all kinds of icky VD. But as she flees his apartment, she is to encounter even more misfortune as a razor blade-wielding killer attacks her in an elevator. The killer looking slightly like Debbie Harry, in my opinion, although that might be a bit controversial. A hooker called Liz, played by Nancy Allen, finds the dying Kate and catches a glimpse of the killer, and subsequently teams up with Kate's son, Peter, to solve the mystery of the killer's identity, who they are convinced is another patient of Dr. Elliott. Now, Dressed to Kill is a film that I really, really love, and I know there is some controversy about whether or not it should be shoehorned into the slasher category. I'll get onto that later, but for me, it's the quintessential De Palma movie. I mean, it's probably my second favourite De Palma movie after Carrie, but this has all of his trademarks sort of merged, put into a blender and merged into one. It's got the Pino Donaggio score. It's got that ethereal orchestral score and a dreamlike opening sequence, reminding me a lot of Carrie. Carrie starts with a shower sequence that's done in slow motion as well, same as it's done here. It's got I don't know if this is a spoiler alert, it's got a shock dream sequence ending. similar again to Carrie and subsequent other De Palma movies. It's got long continuous takes, which I think, and this might make me sound like a grumpy old man, is really refreshing in this day and age of Michael Bay Transformers movies, where you can't linger on one shot for more than a millisecond, or else apparently the audience will lose its attention. What I love about De Palma movies is long continuous takes, lots rather than cutting, he uses camera movement, lots of split screen as well in Dressed to Kill, which is a big part of Brian De Palma's oeuvre from this time. It's a device to show things happening simultaneously, or in the case of Dressed to Kill, it's sometimes used as a flashback, particularly when Kate is trying to remember where she's put things like her wedding ring or her knickers, which she notices are missing at some stage. The art gallery sequence where Kate picks up the stranger is very typical of De Palma at the time, and what's great about it is that the film continues with no dialogue for maybe 10, 15 minutes or so. And it's interesting to watch it now when the silent movie is so much back in vogue, courtesy of the film The Artist. De Palma has been doing that in small doses. In his films, he has long sequences that are dialogue free. If you think of Carrie, where she wins the prom queen vote, that sequence from where she and William Catt are walking up to the stage, and then you also have Amy Irving investigating what Nancy Allen and John Travolta are up to. That whole sequence plays out without dialogue as well. So he's been doing the silent movie thing, quite a lot for quite a long time. Similarly here, Angie Dickinson is flirting with this stranger. Everything is told through gestures or inventive camera and editing techniques. And it's so eloquently shot that you can't help but become caught up in it. I mean, it's never boring. We were talking earlier about Friday the 13th. Now, as much as I love that film, there is one sequence in it that I find really tedious, and that is where Alice spends about 2 or 3 minutes making a cup of tea, and it's really, really dull. If Brian De Palma had done that, I'm sure it would have been a much more interesting sequence. Probably for me, the standout moment in Dressed to Kill is where Nancy Allen finds Kate half dead in the elevator. It's shot in slow motion. It's dialogue free again. And Liz half glimpses the killer in the convex mirror in the corner of the elevator. And it really is quite creepy and quite eerie. And it's a sequence so typical of De Palma and not something that you see much of nowadays, because the shots linger. There's no sort of quick editing. Again, it's making me sound like a very, very old man, which in many ways I am. I'm about to turn 38, sadly. And, for all the controversy the film stirred up, when it boils down to it, the film only has a body count of 1. I mean, there are a couple of murders in dream sequences, but there's only really 1 murder in the film. And this is where possibly people argue that it's not a slasher film. And, women's groups were up in arms at what they deemed Dressed to Kill to be the epitome of the violence against women theme that was prevalent in slasher films at the time. And, there is something kind of exploitative about the fact that Nancy Allen has to solve the mystery in just her bra and panties towards the end of the film. And looking back, as much as I love the film, I don't recall if I was able to work out the killer's identity when I first watched it, because it's literally 25 years since I first saw Dressed to Kill. Looking back on it now, the killer's identity seems really obvious, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that. Again, I can't say what I thought when I first saw it, but looking back, the signposts are just so obvious. But it doesn't bother me at all. I've said this before, I'm not great at guessing killers' identities in films. So if I was watching Dressed to Kill time now, I probably wouldn't guess. I don't know. Anyway, so it's a film I really love. It's definitely, as I said, my second favourite De Palma movie after Carrie, which to me is in just a masterpiece. Dressed to Kill is quite silly in places. I mean, it's not, on a par with something like Pieces. But, it's silly all the same. What I do love about it is the characters are all quite likeable. Peter, played by Keith Gordon, and Liz, played by Nancy Allen, are really likeable characters. Even Kate, who is the housewife, played by Angie Dickinson, we don't want to see her die. I mean, we understand her plight. She's in a sort of loveless marriage, and she doesn't deserve the comeuppance she gets. I think it's really well acted. although I know some people disagree, and I'll discuss more of that later. The acting for me is quite good. I mean, Nancy Allen, I think, is probably the weakest link, but she's still quite good in it. I think she's awful in films later in her career, like RoboCop and Poltergeist 3, but I think she's quite good here. And you know, it even though it only has 2 scenes of real, proper, sort of gory violence as such, it still manages to be engaging and thrilling. And it's made with such great technical finesse that, you know, each frame is so carefully composed. I think, Justin, you said before that there was a quote about Dario Argento where they could take any frame from his film and you know, hang it in the Louvre. I think that's equally true of something like Dressed to Kill. Yeah, so one of my favorites, I think De Palma's Peak. I think it was, you know, slowly downhill from there, but I love Dressed to Kill. So what do you think, Nathan?
Oh, yeah, Dressed to Kill is a really, really great film. Obviously, the elevator scene stands out, you know, from the second the doors open to when Nancy Allen, you know, eyes the killer in the mirror. You know, it's all played out, you know, really, really well. And I agree with you. I think that Angie Dickinson's character, I felt really, really sorry for her because especially like when she, you know, sees the killer and, you know, she's kind of cowering away. I felt really bad for her. And you know, even though you know she's going to get killed, you know, you still kind of hope she doesn't, because her death is so brutal. You know, like the slashing with the razor. I mean, it's very realistic, and, you know, it's a very, very brutal scene. And I love Nancy Allen's character in this movie. You know, like you said, they're very likable people, and you're rooting for them to solve the case. I will admit that, you know, when I watched it, I did guess the ending. Because like you said, you know, even watching it now, when I rewatched it a few days ago, it's very obvious, you know, when you look at it now, you know, it's so obvious who the killer is going to turn out to be. But I love it no matter what. And I got a cat in here. Come on.
Yes, we can hear. A very hungry cat.
She thinks I'm talking to her, I think.
Okay, will I give a spoiler alert here? Because I might have to. Will I give away the killer's identity? Okay, the killer turns out to be Michael Caine's drag alter ego. I should have mentioned that before. The killer is actually a transvestite. It's Michael Caine's character dressed up as a lady, looking, as I said, kind of like Debbie Harry.
Very loosely, though.
Yeah, very loosely. But any time a woman tries to come onto him, he gives this little glance into a mirror. That's very suspicious looking. It's not quite on a par with the pointing out the killer's identity in Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. It's not that you know, over the top obvious, but it's still, the clues are still quite obvious, I think. What do you think, Joseph?
Oh, I love Dressed to Kill, and I just find, I agree that, you know, the character played by what's her name again? Angie Dickinson. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought she didn't deserve what she got. I find it ironic that this woman who's in this loveless marriage and who yearns for, you know, sexual release gets killed, and yet the one person who survives is someone who sells sex on a regular basis. It's kind of a flip side. I like that. And, you know, Brian De Palma is often quoted as being a huge Alfred Hitchcock hack. But, you know, if you ask me, he does the Hitchcock kind of pastiche a little better than pretty much anyone. So I forgive him. I'd say Dressed to Kill is my second favorite behind Body Double.
Right.
It is a fantastic film. I do consider it a slasher film. You know, I was speaking with Johnny Krug on the Hysteria Continues board, and he didn't think it was a slasher film.
Yeah.
You know, I could see where some people don't. It only has one real death, but it has a killer stalking people with a knife or a razor. In this instance, there's chase scenes. You know, it's a whodunit, a very obvious whodunit. I mean, the first time I watched it, I immediately knew it was a variation on Psycho. I mean, I was like, yeah, it's him. I mean, Robert, Bobby. I mean, it's De Palma, so you know he's going to kind of ape Hitchcock a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Dressed to Kill, it really is fantastic. That elevator scene, you know, it does for elevators what Psycho did for showers. And I also love the scene on the on the subway where Nancy Allen's trying to escape the clutches of the killer, and he's just so close to her, and the only reason he doesn't get to her is because the doors that separate them. I just thought that was a fantastic chase scene.
That was the scene, of course, Justin was referring to when we were talking about Terror Train. Yeah.
It's a lot like Terror Train, yeah. I mean, overall, it's a really great movie. It's an excellent thriller. I highly recommend this film.
Well, on Hysteria Lives, it got 4 out of 5. Now, I know that you didn't do the review yourself, Justin, but what do you think of Dressed to Kill?
Well, funnily enough, I may be a slight voice of dissent, I think.
La 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 la, I'm not listening to you. La 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 la.
I bought the Blu-ray because I hadn't seen the film for a long time, and I've got it on VHS. And in fact, I've got a Guild Video X certificate VHS, which I'm looking at the moment. But I bought it on Blu-ray, and I think it's I don't know. Watching on Blu-ray, the film's flaws really came to the forefront for me this time, and I agree. I like Brian De Palma films. I think Sisters is a great film. I love Carrie. Body Double's great. Even Raising Cain and films like that. I really enjoy. Dressed to Kill is very much an exercise in style over substance, I think, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Certainly, I think the thing that annoyed me, I think, actually, was that Brian De Palma, on all of the on the kind of the making of, he got really pissed off at the time when the film was released, and still now, that he's accused of being a Hitchcock wannabe. And the brutal truth is, he is a Hitchcock wannabe. I mean, he's ripping off Hitchcock and doing it in such an unsubtle way. I mean, he's doing it in a very artful way and very skillful way, but he is ultimately, he's ripping off Hitchcock in a million different ways in Dressed to Kill, from the fact that he kills off his Angie Dickinson, the named, the woman who is famous for being policewoman, a blonde, again, she gets killed in an elevator rather than the shower. But like you say, the film's bookended with shower sequences. And so I think I said with Sisters, it's like more of a headbang to Hitchcock than a nod. And Dressed to Kill, again, is like that. I mean, Dressed to Kill went on to basically launch the erotic thriller that was so, beloved of straight-to-video films starring Shannon Tweed in the early 90s. Now, I think it's full of really good set pieces. It looks brilliant, but I think, personally, I mean, only because I'm only being a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because it's a good film, and it looks great, but De Palma, he fails when it comes to the fact of who done it, because ultimately you find out that it's a transsexual killer halfway through the film, if you hadn't already guessed, and unless it was somebody you'd never met before in the film. Because sometimes you get films where you suddenly just get someone coming in and they go, aha, it's so-and-so.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th, exactly.
Yes.
That's a perfect example of it. But with this, there really isn't actually anyone else, apart from maybe Angie Dickinson's husband, or you could potentially think, or the man that she has sex with, potentially. But the reality of it is that it doesn't really work as a whodunit, I don't think. It flirts with it, but doesn't really work for me. I don't know. I just felt also the things that put me off, and I think you said you were going to talk about this a little bit more, Erik, was the acting. Personally, I mean, Michael Caine was in his phone it in acting period with films like The Swarm and The Island. He's basically doing it for a cash, for a check, and. Although Michael Caine's great, he's on autopilot here. I think he's just phoning in a performance. Nancy Allen, I think, is awful in this film. I think she's very likable, and that kind of covers up for it. But there's certain sequences where it's basically, she's Brian De Palma's wife. He gave her the part. Whether or not I'd be flattered that he wrote, if I was his wife, that he wrote a part for a hooker for me. I don't know if I'd be flattered by that. But that's the reason she got the part. She's his wife. I don't think I think actually a lot of what she does in the film is good. She's got a great presence. I think she's kind of homely and fun and a nice character, and I think that's probably her real life character. But I think some of it is amateur dramatics from her, and I think if she hadn't been married to him, he probably would have pulled her up on that. Angie Dickinson, I liked her character, but again, I thought some of her acting was good, but some of it was a little bit kind of hokey as well. So all the way through the film, the only person I thought gave a really good performance was Dennis Franz as Marino, the cop, and maybe the son. So I think it's a film with a lot of flaws for me. It's got great set pieces, but I think it's a lot about style over substance for me. And I think it's funny. The first time I saw it, and all the times I've seen it before, I've loved it. This time I watched it, and I just kind of, it something rankled with me, and it didn't quite work for me. So, but there I am, a voice of dissent. What can I say? That's
you weren't the only voice of dissent. On the acting thing, 1981 was the first year of the Golden Raspberry Awards, which I think are called the Razzies now. And Dressed to Kill got nominated in 3 categories. Didn't win any of them, but it got nominated for Worst Actor, Michael Caine, Worst Actress, Nancy Allen, and Worst Director, Brian De Palma. Now, it eventually lost out in all those categories. Worst Actor eventually went to, let me have a look here. Worst Actor went to Neil Diamond in The Jazz Singer that year. Worst Actress went to Brooke Shields in The Blue Lagoon. Worst Director went to Robert Greenwald for Xanadu, and I have issues with the Golden Razzies for that, because Xanadu to me is a classic movie. Incidentally, just on a tangent while we're on the Razzies, Worst Picture that year, one of the nominees was Friday the 13th, and one of the nominees for Worst Supporting Actress was Betsy Palmer. But she lost out to Amy Irving. And worst film that year was Can't Stop the Music, which was the Village People movie. Yes?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I know. I mean, I agree. I think Nancy Allen is quite a weak actress. I thought she was very good in Carrie.
Yeah.
In this, she's weak. And incidentally, in the next film De Palma did, which is Blowout, he also cast his wife of the time, Nancy Allen, as a prostitute, which is, you wonder if she got the hint. Yeah. Now, as for is it a slasher or not? As you say, it's more of a Hitchcock pastiche. I mean, there's a body count of 1, so automatically a low body count would set your slasher radar going. The final dream sequence, I think, where Nancy Allen is in the shower, is pure Friday the 13th. The elevator death, I think, is more in common with Italian movies, giallos. I think it's very reminiscent of the death of the psychic in Deep Red. But those 2 scenes aside, I think, it's not a traditional slasher. But I mean, the scope, I think, on Hysteria Lives is that the slasher is quite broad, the terms. I mean, even, as we've said before a few times, even The Descent made it onto the Hysteria Lives review site. So
as well, there's another film that did, so
yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I think sorry, just very quickly, it's just kind of the I never hear De Palma talking about Italian films and whether or not Argento influenced him, but obviously there's quite a few giallo where there's murders or attacks in elevators. I mean,
Pieces.
Pieces, yeah, of course, it's Pieces. Of course, that came, kind of guess it came afterwards, isn't it? But the case of Bloody Iris, and also What They've Done to Your Daughters is another, where a woman gets attacked with a hatchet in a lift. So it's just, and also the black leather gloves and all that kind of fetishistic kind of thing with the film. I do wonder. It's a bit like actually Carpenter's quite shy about crediting Argento and Barber and people like that. So I wonder if it's the same with De Palma.
Well, I shamefully am not that well versed in Hitchcock, I have to say. I mean, I've seen a lot of his films. When I say a lot, I mean probably a dozen. I've seen the major ones, The Birds, Psycho, North by Northwest, blah, blah, blah. But maybe if I was more of a Hitchcock fanatic, I might be more offended by De Palma's pilchering, of his iconic directorial style. I was looking through some archives of New York Times. On the 20th of July, 1980, De Palma said, on accusations that he reproduces direct scenes from Hitchcock within Dressed to Kill, he said, "Critics may look for them, but if they are there, then they come from my subconscious. What I did do deliberately was to use certain Hitchcock devices, particularly in the first half of the film, where there is practically no dialogue at all. I let the camera tell the story, moving and watching, sometimes as if it were the eye of one of my characters, sometimes that of an indifferent observer. Usually you menace people in dark streets, but in North by Northwest, Hitchcock did it in broad daylight under a vast open sky by having a crop-dusting plane roaring down on Cary Grant. I built a similar climax in a brightly lit bathroom. Then the Globe and Mail, which is another US newspaper, said in September of 1980, they were quite critical, like you, Justin, of the Hitchcock stealing, as they would put it. De Palma has proved less a successor than a disciple to Hitchcock. He is an entertainer who survives by swallowing the movies of another man. Adoration by way of imitation is an activity most artists outgrow by the age of 30. De Palma is almost 40, and whilst his talent is undeniable, he has progressed more as a craftsman than an artist. The technical package is terrific, but the goods it opens to reveal are shoddily second-hand, is what they said. So as I said, I mean, if I was more versed in Hitchcock, that aspect might be more obvious to me, but I still think it's a wonderful film.
Okay, well, no, I mean, it is a good film, and don't get me wrong, but I kind of, sometimes with films you do watch them again, don't you? And they don't stand up, and it didn't stand up for me as well. I mean, there's great set pieces in it. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
how long is it since you saw it the last time?
I can't remember. Probably not that long. I mean, probably, I don't know, sort of 5-10 years ago, maybe. But
well, when I rewatched it for the podcast, I loved it even more than I did before.
Right. Okay. Well, it's got I suppose it's got the the look of, well, it's 1980, isn't it? So it's shot in 79, wasn't it? Late 79.
Yeah.
So it's got that kind of look to it. I mean, it's kind of silly, isn't it? And a lot of the stuff in it is quite silly, but. That's not a problem at all. Obviously, for slasher movies, if we like slasher movies, silliness is not something to be frowned upon. No. Obviously. But what about Joseph and Erik? Joseph and Nathan. What else? Other thoughts before we get onto the trivia section of it.
I don't find it silly. I mean, hammy, especially Nancy Allen. I don't find much of it silly at all. I find it kind of loose, like a dreamlike almost. It's otherworldly. It's in that haze that De Palma employs. Like the characters exist in their own kind of universe, not in our universe. And giving it that, I don't find any of it silly. I mean, I can see where someone would. I mean. But I don't really.
What about you?
Yeah, I actually had more I wanted to say about it. What else I was going to say is, one, I don't think Nancy Allen's that bad in this movie. I mean, I agree that she's like way better in Carrie. I mean, I liked her a lot better as the bitchy character, but I didn't think she was that bad in this movie. And I also wanted to say that I love the finale with her in the doctor's office and like the stormy weather and the darkness. I thought that was a great finale. And I also wanted to say that I love the scene when Angie Dickinson's leaving the museum, and the camera's panning across the crowd to the guy holding her glove outside the cabin. When it pans across, you can see Bobby standing out there, obviously totally aware of what's going on.
It's a great scene.
It is very good. Yeah.
I think part of the problem for me with De Palma is that he's so sniffy about slasher movies, and we already talked about how he starts Blowout with basically taking the piss out of the slasher movie, as basically really sniffily saying, "Oh, they're beneath contempt." But the reality is that De Palma is a bridge. What he does is a bridge between Hitchcock and the slasher movie, and of course the end of this film is pure Friday the 13th or Halloween, isn't it? Even the dream sequence at the end starts with a prowling camera going around the house, doesn't it? Which to me looked like a complete direct lift from the beginning of Halloween. But I kind of get the impression that De Palma thinks he's above that. And that's what probably annoys me, I think, with De Palma, that he employs trashy, I don't mean that in a bad way, because I think trashy is good, horror movie sort of ideas. Like with The Fury is a completely stupid movie. It's a fun movie.
Very stupid,
very stupid. And exploding people and stuff like that. I mean, so he's not, I don't see why he's above that. And certainly as a director, I mean, what's he done of note recently. You know?
Well, I was going to get onto that. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his recent films, but Mission to Mars is probably the last one I saw, and I'm probably the one person in the world who actually enjoyed that film. I mean, it is stupid.
Have you seen Femme Fatale?
No.
No, it's actually really good.
Is it? Yeah, I know he did. Didn't he do
stylish? Yeah,
didn't he do a found footage film called Redacted? I think.
I don't know.
That was Brian De Palma, yeah. But no, I haven't seen a lot of his recent stuff. He did. I can't think of the title of it, but I thought Mission to Mars was. I mean, it doesn't look at all like a De Palma movie that we would know and love from the 70s and 80s. But I thought it was entertaining. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but that doesn't stop a film from being entertaining. I don't think.
No. I mean, Dressed to Kill is a fabulously entertaining film, and I think watching on its own is kind of great. But I do take issue with De Palma over certain things, and I think that when I was researching this film for tonight, I was kind of looking at various kind of things, and he even got Nancy Allen in the press saying about how annoyed he was being accused of being a Hitchcock wannabe, and you're thinking, well, if that was the case, why are you doing such blatant steals or blatant, things? Because you can do a thriller. I mean, there's plenty of thrillers out there without, such obvious Hitchcock things. When I can't believe that he thought at the time that the Hitchcock stuff was subconscious. Like the idea of taking Angie Dickinson as the blonde who gets killed off at the beginning of the movie wouldn't be referred back to Psycho. I mean, surely that's. You can't be. That's beyond it being a subconscious thing within the writing. I just think it's a bit bizarre, really. So it's almost like somebody who's like a naughty boy who's been caught out, and he doesn't like it. That's what annoys me about De Palma. But the film itself, I think, is it's good, but it's not great. And I can see why people really like it, but it just annoyed me this time. And
I would personally think it's not good. I think it's great. I think it's probably one of the best films we've reviewed on the podcast so far.
I would agree.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's flashy and it's kind of. I just think it's style over substance. I don't think it's a great film.
Well, I mean, you can argue that everything Argento did in his prime was style over substance. Suspiria, Inferno, Tenebrae.
You can, but I think those films are more satisfying. I mean, certainly Tenebrae as a whodunit is more satisfying, I think, than.
No, I would disagree. I think Dressed to Kill is a better film than Tenebrae, myself, personally.
No, well, I mean, it's good that we've actually got a film that we kind of disagree about, because I think that's good. But I personally, I don't think Dressed to Kill is anywhere near as good as anything Argento put out, pre opera, personally. But that's just me.
It's also not quite as good as The Last Slumber Party either, but it's close.
No, of course, nothing is.
Drag Last Slumber Party into this.
You've upset Nathan.
Okay.
That had a scalpel in it as well.
Just on an aside, I have the film playing in the background. I just should mention there's 2 slasher movie cameos in the film. One is by Bill Randolph, who was one of the double impalement duo in Friday the 13th Part 2. He plays a cab driver. And the other is it's the lead actor from Christmas Evil. I'll just get his name up here. I think I have it on IMDb. No, I don't have it up on IMDb, but it's the guy who plays the killer in Christmas Evil. Is one of Nancy Allen's clients in
Brandon Maggott.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes. So, anything else to say? I mean, I've got some trivia here, but
I've got some trivia as well.
I got some as well. I have some.
Nathan?
It was directed by Brian De Palma.
Really?
And it stars. Yeah, and the Angie Dickinson scene is kind of similar to the Janet Leigh scene in Psycho. And that's
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Very much.
Okay, Joseph, why don't you give us your trivia?
I'll give it to you. I found out that as a young man, Brian De Palma, at his mother's urging, actually followed his father around using recording equipment to try to catch him cheating with another woman, and that kind of inspired this film. Also, in 1982, Dressed to Kill had its television broadcast premiere on NBC in the States. during the broadcast, the following dialogue actually slipped past the censors and was aired to millions. It's when Dr. Elliot says, "When was the last time you had sexual intercourse with your wife, Lieutenant?" And then
Tuesday.
Detective Marino... Hello?
Sorry. I just said Tuesday. I said Tuesday.
Okay. And then Detective Marino responds, "What the fuck business is it of yours?" And they left that in there. And also I found out, I didn't know this until I found out, but in all the scenes except the finale in Dr. Elliot's office, Bobby was actually played by Susanna Clem, who also portrays Detective Luce or Lucci. I can't remember her, Luce or whatever it is. I always thought that it was always Michael Caine in drag, but apparently not. It was an actress.
No, only the final scene is Michael Caine, yeah.
Yeah. I always thought it was Michael Caine because, I was like, hey, it looks just like Michael Caine. But
Nancy Allen actually says on the making of documentary on the DVD that she was told to go see Michael Caine in drag before they started filming so that she wouldn't burst out laughing on set when she first saw him. Because apparently he was sitting there in drag with a cigar going, I always knew if I worked long enough and hard enough I'd end up playing my ma. My mother. Yeah.
But that's all I have for that.
Okay, I'll go next because I know Justin probably has about 15 pages of trivia ready to go. I assume you do, Justin, yes?
I've got a few bits.
Okay, well, I'll just say what I have. Apparently, the original script was supposed to start with a man shaving his entire body. Then when it gets down to his winkle, he was supposed to lop it off. It was supposed to be a bit of a dream sequence. He was supposed to lop off his winkle with a razor blade, but that was cut out of the script early on. Instead, it starts, of course, with the Angie Dickinson shower scene. The character of Peter, who eventually is played by Keith Gordon in the film, he was meant to be much younger. They were originally thinking of an 11-year-old for that role. The art gallery sequence was shot in Philadelphia. The interiors were shot in Philadelphia. The exteriors were shot in New York. For the art gallery sequence as well, the original script had an internal monologue that was scripted so that Angie Dickinson knew where her thoughts were supposed to be. And the intention was always to have her voiceover on the film. But when they went to the editing room, they realized they didn't need the voiceover in the end. So they scrapped it. When Angie Dickinson was having sex in the back of a taxi, that was all shot for real in a taxi, driving through New York. And she said it was absolutely mortifying because people in sort of high vehicles like trucks or buses could see down through the back window of the taxi and see that she was having sex, but they couldn't see the camera crew and it's sort of sitting in the front. So she said it was, quite embarrassing. As you said, the woman who played the transsexual Bobby for the majority of the film was Susan Clem. I suppose that was an attempt to keep the identity of the killer a bit of a secret. The voice of the killer is done by William Finley, and he was one of De Palma's regular actors. He played the Phantom in Phantom of the Paradise. He also had a prominent role in Sisters. He later went on to appear in the slasher classics Funhouse and Silent Rage. As you said, the original R-rated release, which was released to theatres in 1980, has some slight differences. There's a lot of sexualized dialogue in the film, a lot of which had to be changed, certainly for the TV version that came out in 1982. What was changed was the opening shower sequence. What you get in the unrated version is shots of, quote, beaver, which I believe is what you Americans call it. You get, well, you do. Yes?
It's not what I call it. I've heard that term. But...
I've never called it that either, but I don't use that term very often.
No, you wouldn't have need to, would you?
No.
No. The elevator scene was cut as well, with close-ups of the blade cutting the cheek and the throat were removed. Some of the dialogue, as you said, Joseph, where Nancy Allen is referring to... she refers to a bulge in the pants. She refers to the size of the cock in your pants in the unrated version to Michael Caine, but in the R-rated version, that's changed to the size of the bulge in your pants. And the end dream sequence slightly trimmed to remove some of the gore of the slitting throat. Justin, now is your time to amaze us. Oh, hang on. before we continue, the budget for the film was $6.5 million, and it made a very respectable $32 million at the box office in the US. It was placed number 21, I suppose, which was maybe a bit of a disappointment to the producers of the film. It was only the 21st most popular film of 1980 in the US. Number 18 that year was Friday the 13th, and the highest grossing horror film of the year was The Shining, which was 14th. Okay, that's all my trivia. Justin?
Well, just to carry on from that, if the film was released today, it would have made $83 million at the box office. So it was a pretty sizable hit. It was kind of like a very, very popular film at the time. Something you haven't mentioned, apart from saying about the shower sequence at the beginning, was that it wasn't Angie Dickinson in the shower. It was a Playboy bunny or a Playmate. So
well, just for the close-ups of boobs and vajayjay, it was.
Well, it was kind of, yes, it was a stunt minge, wasn't it? Basically,
yeah, stunt minge.
Stunt minge that was utilised. Now, obviously, like
this is where we differ from other podcasts in that we use terms like stunt minge.
Well, I mean, who doesn't use the term stunt minge? I mean, who hasn't ever used a stunt minge in real life? So Angie Dickinson had to be persuaded to do the film by Brian De Palma because she'd just come off Policewoman in '78. Which was a very popular kind of TV series in the 70s, and she was very worried about it. And you said about the her in the car when she's basically being, how can I put it politely, licked out by the man in the back of the taxi. And didn't somebody shout, something like, go for it, policewoman, or something, and those truckers driving along. So it was all, as you can imagine, quite difficult for her. Now, but even worse than that is for Angie Dickinson was that the very iconic poster, and this is one of the posters I remember from when I was a kid, and I've spoken about this before, I think, was seeing the posters, things like Friday the 13th Part 2, Happy Birthday to Me, and things like that outside the cinema. And the one I really remember is the double bill of Dressed to Kill and the Amityville Horror. And, of course, the iconic image of Dressed to Kill is the woman with high heels pulling up or pulling down her stockings, and in the background there is the door opening and there's a figure in the background about to come in, and but of course the irony is that the figure you just see her legs, so you don't know it's Angie Dickinson, but obviously that's presumably who it is wearing these killer heels, massive heels, but in the film she wears open toe sandals, which are far more comfortable but not quite as sexy, and apparently in that caused controversy, because I'll talk a little bit more about the controversy in a minute, but that caused controversy, a bit like in Serial Mom, where what's her name? I can't remember her name now. The woman wears white shoes after Labor Day, and apparently it's a no-no.
Patty Hearst.
Patty Hearst, that's the one. Yes, thank you. But in Variety, I found this great quote where it says, "Speaking of Dressed to Kill, we have heard several ladies complain that Angie Dickinson should not wear open-toe sandals in New York City with dress and gloves to get murdered in." So they weren't worried about her being murdered in Dressed to Kill, but they were worried about her fashion ensemble, which was obviously, even for the time, was not good. So that was that. What else have I got for the film? The Anthony Boyd Scriven was one of the actors who menaced Nancy Allen on the subway. He was actually arrested on manslaughter and weapons charges for killing a man over an argument over a cocaine deal in September 1980. So after the film was shot. The film obviously made a lot of money. It was filmed. Production started in August 1979, with shooting starting in October. It was like a 65-day schedule. It was released by Filmways, who went on to release The Burning the following year. So there's a connection there. Roger Ebert, who hated Friday the 13th the same year, along with his fellow reviewer, gave the film 3 out of 4 stars. And whether or not it was because it was a high-profile film, I don't know, but the film got off more lightly, I think, with certain critics than something like Friday the 13th, which is much more low budget. It was almost like the Dirty Urchin Friday the 13th, whereas Dressed to Kill was the kind of polished sort of release. I think what's the other things? Who was it? Oh God, his name escapes me now. Who's one of the Bonds?
Timothy Dalton,
No,
Roger Moore, Sean Connery, George Lazenby.
That was Sean Connery was offered the Michael Caine position before, and he turned it down before Michael Caine took it. So can you imagine what that would have been? Sean Connery and
Hi, this is Bobby. Bobby.
Indeed, yes. So that would
That's
have
a
been
good accent, isn't it?
That was a very good
Scottish
accent. Yes.
Convincing.
Almost as good as Eric's Scottish accent.
I don't think I've done a Scottish accent on the podcast.
I thought you were Scottish.
No. According to recent research, Ireland and Scotland are different countries.
Are they?
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
They're all north to me.
Hang on. We're east to you.
All right. Okay, fair enough. West. No, you're west to us, aren't you?
Sorry, yes, west.
Yes, you are. Sir. Oh, dear. Angie Dickinson said that it was probably her favourite film. Now, also what's quite interesting is that Brian De Palma wrote a screenplay called Cruising before he I don't think he could get funding, or he couldn't obtain the rights to the film, which is basically was eventually turned into another very controversial film in 1980 by William Friedkin, which was around about murders in the gay community in New York City. So it would have been interesting if Brian De Palma had actually done Cruising and then done Dressed to Kill, because Dressed to Kill obviously went on to be an incredibly controversial movie, because although we kind of think that 1980 is kind of like the quite early in the slasher movie, even though Halloween was 78, but we think kind of maybe 1981 was the kind of epicenter of the slasher movies we know it. 1981 really was, as we talked about before, it's kind of a slasher movie boom was petering out in 1981. All those films were made in 1980. But Dressed to Kill was very, very controversial, no more so than actually in England. And the reason why it was so controversial in England was England, especially the north of England, was gripped by the Yorkshire Ripper murders at the same time. So you had this Yorkshire Ripper. By the time Dressed to Kill was released in the UK, 13 women had been murdered by the Yorkshire Ripper, and the Yorkshire Ripper was not caught. So had this massive backlash against horror movies and slasher movies, and but more so probably the more high-profile ones like Dressed to Kill and The Shining. And there were major protests in the UK by feminists, which involved actually. I was reading some article that was actually in the States talking about this, but saying how women had run into a cinema showing some Emmanuelle film and started beating the men around the head with their fists, and then threw red paint at the screen. And similar things happened with Dressed to Kill as well. So it was a strange time in the UK anyway at that point, but it certainly wasn't peculiar just to the UK. But I think I don't think there were so many protests in the States, where obviously the film was very, very popular, and as I said before, it's probably a precursor to kind of Shannon Tweed type straight to video bonk fests of the 90s. I think that's pretty much everything I've got about Dressed to Kill I can think of at the moment. So I don't know if anyone got any thoughts?
Just on the subject of how it was received by critics at the time, it seems to be, I always assumed in my head that it had been ill-received, but the critics seemed to kind of enjoy the film. I was looking at the New York Times, as I said, and their review, paraphrasing it, was the previous films of De Palma are more fun for lively, isolated sequences than for any sustained effect. But they describe Dressed to Kill as a witty, romantic, psychological horror film, and it's almost as rewarding as a successful analysis. Those of us who have favoured the comic De Palma will be happy to see that Dressed to Kill is very funny, which helps to diffuse the effect of the graphically photographed violence. The performers are excellent, especially Miss Dixon, whose drawn, taut beauty says as much about her character as anything she actually does. So the New York Times obviously liked it, and they disagree with your thesis that Miss Dixon was a bit cheesy in the role of Kate Miller.
Yeah, well, New York Times, Norwich rhymes. Yeah, go on.
Sorry?
No, anyway, it's just New York Times for you. But
yeah, but I mean, I'd always assumed that it was a film that had been bashed by the critics, but obviously they had liked it. I mean, I know it's slightly underperformed to studio expectations, but it was well received at the time, apart from the feminist backlash, as you said.
Okay, well, is there anything else left to say about Dress to Kill before we move on? I mean, to sum up...
It's great,
Eric,
and you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
I'm not saying... I'm just being devil's advocate. You know, I don't hate it.
Are you offended by it as somebody who has a penchant for dressing up in bra and panties every New Year's Eve? Is that what your problem
got that
is?
from, Eric?
Sorry?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, nothing like that offend. I didn't find anything offensive at all.
I've seen your cross-dressing pictures, Justin, and you are not dressed to kill.
I am. I'll come and stab you with my fake boobs. And if people listening to this, I don't make a habit of dressing up in bra and panties. You know, please don't believe that. But I've been known on
lying.
a New Year's Eve party to like as everyone else, the dress code. So that's all I'm going to say. And I hate to imagine what everyone else on this podcast is dressed at. Is probably currently dressed at, just because we can't see you. I can imagine.
I'm dressed like a chav.
Are you?
Yeah.
I can imagine maybe Joseph's dressed like a plushie.
What?
What's a plushie?
Isn't a plushie? Isn't that someone who goes and has sex dressed as a giant animal?
What?
Oh, what?
I've never heard of that.
Have you? You not heard of a plushie?
He's dressed as a bear or something.
I'll tell you what. Go to Google now. Let's all go to Google now.
Okay.
And then let's put plushie into turn off your safe search, and then put it into Google image.
Urban Dictionary. Oh, and I have lushy. Oh, hang on. I've typed in lushy by mistake.
Is it plushie or is
How
it
do you
slushy?
spell it? With a Y or I-E?
Maybe it's not plushie.
See, I'm in Google Images. All I'm getting is plush dolls.
A plushophile is a person who's attracted to stuffed animals.
Yes.
Plushophilia.
So
I'll type in plushophile under Google Images.
Oh, I will tell you what. If you type in plushie sex and see what you come up with.
Oh,
and it's not.
Oh, here we go. It looks like Erik.
Hey. I am cuddly.
Have you typed in plushie? Oh dear. No. Some things that are seen cannot be unseen.
No. Okay, yeah. I don't want to see any of that.
I'm not seeing anything terribly obscene now.
What?
This guy looks like a bear. This guy's a bear.
Have you put plushie sex in?
Oh,
yeah.
Whoa.
I've
having sex with a bear. Wow.
Are you spelling plushie with a Y or an IE?
IE.
I spell it with an IE as well. Yeah. Okay, I'm obviously not getting the same results you are.
Well, it's obviously censored in Ireland. But anyway, that's we'll draw a discreet veil over that. So I wouldn't suggest looking at that. But anyway, so let's just move on, shall we? Moving on. Shall we go on to feedback, or have you got anything else you want to say in closing on Dress to Kill?
No, just that. I think it's one of my, as I said, one of the favorite films we've discussed so far on the podcast. Probably my favorite film we've discussed so far.
Okay, well,
it's not quite as good as House of Death, but it's good.
Oh.
It's not quite my favorite, but it is a good movie.
No, it's not my favorite, but it is.
No, actually, now I think we did discuss My Bloody Valentine, so that's probably my favorite. But this would be second.
And Black Christmas.
No, I'd still rate this higher than Black Christmas. Oh dear!
No. Oh my gosh!
What have I said?
Kind of out there.
You're out of your mind. Come on. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on. Let's move
that's
on.
insane, Erik. I can't even fathom that one.
Erik, you've lost. You've kind of lost
You're
our.
so vanilla. You're so
Maybe
vanilla.
I should get back to the mindfuck.
What mindfuck?
Oh, it's just a line that Nancy Allen delivers in the film.
Okay.
If your clothes aren't beside my clothes, then maybe we can just get back to the mindfuck or something like that. She says.
Yeah. Well. That was Dress to Kill, and I think maybe I was a little bit harsh on it, but only in the the spirit of conversation. But then maybe I wasn't. Who knows? So, talking of mindfucks, let's move on to feedback. And before we do, Joseph, do you want to tell people how they can get in contact with the show and tell us what they think?
Yeah, obviously our email is the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/thehysteriacontinues. We're on Twitter as well. That's twitter.com/THC_podcast. Find us at the-bodycount-continues.com. There's a lot of us posting on there. Let's see. If you want to call in, the number is 858-233-9281. And that's how you can reach out and touch us.
Excellent. Not in a plushy way. But shall we start?
Not in your plushophile. Don't wear any bear costumes, please.
No.
Oh, no, hang on.
What?
No, wear bear costumes, I think.
See, I fingered the wrong person. Maybe it was Erik that was the... and we haven't had one of these yet, have we?
No, please, hold your hand.
See, it's written into the contract. So anyway, here's the first voicemail. Thank you for getting in touch.
Oh, I am out jogging, and next thing I know, I am on ground. This is Cabe Gaplin, and I just want to wish the good folks at Hysteria Continues a happy podcast anniversary, and to thank you all for covering in great detail the best lecture on anatomy disguised as a cheesy slasher movie ever. That would be Pieces. Thanks to this movie, I learned where a woman's pectorals are located. Changed my life. I also learned how fast you have to be on a skateboard to crash through a plate glass window. Not very. But most important of all, thanks to this movie, I'm calling you now after smoking pot and fucking on a waterbed. And let me tell you, it was... something I eat. Bad chop suey. So long.
Well, thank you very much, Cabe.
I like Cabe Gaplin. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy, and that's
it's great to hear these to have a voice to match to the name.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Cabe. I mean, thanks for the feedback on the Pieces episode. It was an epic, and we're getting actually, I don't think we're not going to make quite those lengths as we did last time. So, but we shall see. But no, thank you for getting in touch, Cabe. Nathan, have you got anything for us?
Reese, Glenn Donnell posted on my wall after the Pieces show and said that that show was a marathon. I loved it, and I agree with you guys. Pieces really is the best of the bad. It's difficult to keep my attention span for over 3 hours, but you guys succeeded. Well done.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Reese. Yes, it was an epic. But if we're going to... Pieces deserved it, I think, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, it does. Definitely.
Indeed. And Erik, have you got anything for us?
Bob Hoskins wrote in and said, Justin smells.
Oh, right. Okay. Is he your imaginary friend?
No, this is quite real.
Is it? Really?
Yes.
Can he... did he get access to the internet from his Twilight maximum security home?
You're so mean to me.
Oh, for God's sake. Have you got anything real for us, Erik?
No, I don't have anything real, no.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. We'll draw a discreet veil over that and your choice of Dress to Kill. And we'll go to Joseph. How about you?
No emails this week, but just to kind of go through the Facebook page and the body count continues. This is from Magi Green Ozu. I guess that's your name. I guess that's how you pronounce it. From the Facebook wall. It says, happy birthday, guys. I made a cake, but it vanished. Wait a minute. Are those crumbs in Erik's beard? Keep up the good work. And moving on.
Were they in your beard, Erik?
Well, I do often find crumbs in my beard, I have to say.
Downstairs.
It's not crust, is it?
No.
Ew.
It's crumbs.
Right.
Continuing on. Moving on to the Body Count Continues forums, BTK says, I want you guys to do your top 3 favorite horror films from the 1850s.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, we'll get right on that. Let's see. Rembrandt says, for Nathan, you and the gents need to talk a bit about your mid-90s shot on video slashers. They have a sweet charm to them. Go Mystery Machine. Fantastic Pieces show. But you guys didn't talk about Bastard. And I agree. I can't believe we actually skipped over that.
Oh, no.
Did we?
Yeah.
I didn't remember. I think maybe we just thought we'd spoken about it.
But we have spoken about it in past episodes.
I guess it just kind of Yeah, we just kind of overlooked it, considering we've, pretty much ran it into the ground. But he's right.
Sorry, I just do
I love it.
Rembrandt. That's the yes.
Let's see.
BTK
years. BTK writes again. Great long episode. Few tech problems here and there, but babies, you've come a long way. Proud of you guys, especially Nathan. He's the best.
It's debatable.
Thanks.
Mass
All right,
debatable,
who
I would
else?
say.
Who else? We're getting down here. All right, 42nd Street Freak says, excellent show, one of the best, and the wild ejaculation of smut near the end as Kenneth Williams, and for one brief nanosecond, Sid James, became an extra contributor, was great. Yeah, I love him. Spot on about Pieces, and yes, it is surprising what things it includes. As well as the rare full frontal male nudity, there is the still shocking scene of the girl peeing herself before being chainsawed. You just don't see that in slasher films. Got the Grindhouse DVD. Not got the Grindhouse DVD, but the German DVD of Pieces comes with a very rare and strange behind-the-scenes look at Edmund Purdom directing Don't Open Till Christmas. Full of energy and camp enthusiasm, little knowing he would soon be fired from that train wreck of a movie. Anyway, great work, fellas. Love it. And
can I just interject and say that on the Grindhouse DVD, they do say that the girl who pees her pants in Pieces, that was for real, and they caught it on film because she was so scared. Because there was a running chainsaw so close to her sort of naked torso that she got so frightened she actually peed herself. And now, take it with a pinch of salt, but that's what the director says on the DVD.
Also, the director says that her mother came in, didn't she?
And yes, and saw her severed
and fainted.
Torso.
That's all I have,
Joseph,
this week.
Right.
We don't have any emails this week, so
I've got a bit of feedback from iTunes, and please, if you do listen to this through iTunes, then please leave us a review, because the more the more people who review or at least kind of vote for the show means it will go a bit higher up some chart. I'm not quite sure how it works, but it means that more people hear about us and more people listen, and obviously that makes us all warm and fuzzy inside, like Eric's plushy obsession with bears. So
I can't deny it.
Sorry?
I can't deny it.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm not even going to go there. But actually, funny enough, this is kind of, you'll see what I mean. Keith de Mahoney, that's his name, says, Xander turned me onto this podcast and it's so addictive. These guys can make you appreciate all kinds of movies you shouldn't. Justin's the daddy, Eric's a cute mummy bear, and those two twisted kids, Nathan and Joseph, complete the fierce foursome. But beware, dear listener.
I'm as old as you guys. Why am I the kid? I'm not.
I don't know.
I
don't think you're as old as us.
You're not quite
old, I'm quite close. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but
I'm
beware, dear listener. Spoilers galore, and not just the main feature. Joseph, I'm looking at you. Keep up the good work.
Repeat that. I missed that.
Please. He's basically saying you keep on spoiling films for people. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the messenger. You can't shoot the messenger. He says, but beware, dear listener, spoilers galore, and not just the main feature. Joseph, I'm looking at you. I'm not saying. I'm just reading it. I'm not saying it. And he says, keep up the good work. Daily podcasts, please, guys. Your public demands it. So
he's calling me out for spoilers.
Yeah, but he's also saying,
and he says not just the main feature. So have you spoiled like other movies that were not the main feature?
I spoiled Apollo 18, but that's all I can think of.
Well, hang your head in
shame.
See,
by the time I got to see Apollo 18, I'd forgotten what you'd said about it. So,
and it wasn't really even a big spoiler. I mean, this show has spoilers, so
yeah. But so are you the mummy bear, Eric?
See, that makes it sound like I don't have a winkle. And I do have a winkle.
I don't want to be Eric's cub.
Well, I'm the daddy. I'm the daddy, so it's kind of very strange dynamic going on, really.
Very strange. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel like it is.
Before we go on, Bruce Willis was dead in The Sixth Sense the whole time.
Oh, no. Joseph.
It bothers
that's
me.
probably
that
already lost all our listeners now.
It bothers me that I keep reading stuff about how shocking that twist ending was. I guessed that Sixth Sense twist ending before the halfway point.
So did I, but the thing with Sixth Sense is once somebody tells you there's a big twist ending, you can work it out. If they hadn't told you there was a twist ending, it would have passed you by.
Exactly.
That's true. I knew that there was going to be a twist, so I was looking for it the whole time.
So was I, and I worked it out, as you said.
I didn't know there was a twist, and I guessed it.
And I'm really... Oh, right. Oh, fair enough.
I thought it was obvious.
You ruined my argument.
Yeah. Right. Well, Keith Mahoney, you set the whatever going, so... The apples amongst the cart? No, you've upset the cart. Apple cart, that's the one. Yeah, but thank you for writing in and giving us some scores on iTunes. And we're very happy to get anyone writing in, whether you like what we do or you don't. Sorry, I've got the microphone that keeps on popping in my mouth. I don't know what's going on there. It's got a headset on, please. But here we go. Another voicemail. Here we go. I don't know who this is from. Let's listen. We've had that one. This is another voicemail.
You're so professional.
This is Richard
Thank
from
you.
Tampa, Florida. I am calling in to the raddest slasher podcast in the world because I felt like, hey, these guys have read enough emails. They can listen to my voice, and it'll save them a lot of pain. But then again, this might be really painful also. Anyway, wanted to write in. I've been a fan of the show for a long time now, since around episode 8. And here I am saying hello to the 4 rad dudes. My friend Brad told me about the Hysteria Continues podcast, and I was slapping my forehead repeatedly because I'm a big fan of the Hysteria Live site and the Teenage Wasteland book. I don't know how I missed the show for so damn long. By the way, I couldn't wait for the Teenage Wasteland book to hit bookstores in the States, so I begged my wife to order the UK version for me when it came out. And it's a damn good thing I can read English. Oh. Is that I'm waiting for a laugh. Okay, never mind. One of the things I love about your show is the interaction between the 4 of you guys. I've heard very few podcasts where 4 unique voices make for a good listen, and you rarely talk over each other, and even when you delve into toilet humor or a cat flushing a toilet humor, it's funny and never so stupid that I get embarrassed for you or for me listening. And for some wonderful reason, the whole intercontinental friendship you guys have formed makes for great listening. And of course, there's the content. For a slasher film podcast, you guys leave me wanting nothing. Totally awesome. Between the reviews and the interviews with the cast, I just can't get enough. I also want to praise the part of the show where you guys talk about what you've been watching lately. I know a lot of people don't like that in a podcast, but that's probably the most addictive part of the show for me, just making lists of what is out there. I'm a huge Giallo fan, so naturally I really enjoyed your Deep Red Eyeball episode, and I hope you guys do more Giallo episodes in the future. That was a lot of fun. And since I waited so long to contact you guys, I've forgotten a lot of the things I wanted to say, but I can remember to plug my own crap, like my friend Brad, who's written to you guys before. He plugged our new podcast, which is Hello, This is the Doom Show, and that's at hellodoomshow.podomatic.com. And we often plug you guys on that show because we want everyone to think we know you, and we want everyone to think that we're cool. It's not working, but we're trying. I also staged a 3-day-long 21 slasher movie event on my site called Slashers in the Night, where I destroyed my mind and body with a bevy of unseen slashers. And that's at doomedmoviethon.com. You can check that out. Maybe I need some therapy after that. Anyway, thanks for continuing to make one of the best podcasts around, and I will be back later to praise you until it gets even more awkward than this phone call already is. So I'm Richard in Tampa, Florida. Huge fan of Hysteria Continues, signing off. And make sure you edit out the parts where I make sexual advances towards all of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Richard. We edited those parts out, but we do appreciate the thoughts. So.
I'm just, Justin, I'm just looking at their webpage now. They've just, on February the 1st, which was Wednesday, they published their latest podcast, which covers Case of the Bloody Iris. So I must download that and have a listen.
Yes, we'll have a listen to that. Yeah, well, thank you, Richard. And
Justin,
thanks for Sorry, yeah.
I'm looking over the, you were speaking about iTunes, about people giving in ratings earlier. I'm looking at the European iTunes page as opposed to the American page. The American page actually has more ratings. Isn't that weird? considering most links are coming from your side, from European side.
To be honest, most probably 3/4 of people who visit Hysteria Lives are from America, so it doesn't surprise me that much. But I think the difference is it's worth checking iTunes, because I think the reviews, you can only see the European ones if you're in Europe, you can only see the American ones if you're in America. So you might have some different ones on there to the ones I can see, potentially. But I just want to say thank you very much to Richard for the kind words about the slasher movie book and Hysteria. The Teenage Wasteland. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
What's it called in the States again?
The slasher movie book.
Oh yeah,
and it will be out.
So vanilla.
I like Teenage Wasteland so much better.
Yeah, me too.
To be honest, I did. That was their decision, and I'm quite happy with it. But I did suggest it might, it'd be nice to stay with the.
Why did they
title.
change it? Do you know why?
I guess they they wanted something that would say exactly what it was. But
okay.
It's got the same cover. It's got the same image on the cover. So I'm just hoping people don't buy the book twice, thinking it's a different thing. But because it's got the same image, they probably won't. So, but it's going to be out in June. So, and I will be getting some review copies for you guys, I think, hopefully. So, if you haven't already seen it,
yes.
But it's pretty much if you haven't got it, or if you have got it, it's been updated a little bit. And some of the mistakes have been changed, so to protect.
Is there mistakes in Hysteria in Teenage Wasteland?
There's a few, yes.
Oh, I didn't notice.
It's not too many. It's because actually, originally when it was done, is that the publishing company, who I love dearly, but the woman who was doing the sub-editing, she was picking quotes out from the text and putting them into, like they're kind of bold out in the side panels and stuff like that. And but she picked out, there was a couple of clangers that I got. One that she took some dialogue from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and put it next to talk about the original film, which I spotted, but also attributed some a quote to Wes Craven that wasn't from Wes Craven and things like that. So it's just things I managed to catch, but I think it's just got like a couple of directors wrong, and nothing major, but that's all been sorted out anyway. But that's out in June. So if you haven't got it, pick it up. It's on. I think it's up for pre-sale on Amazon at the moment. So by all means do. If you haven't been put off by talk about Erik sat in his bear costume.
Hey, there are pictures in the book.
Sorry?
I said, are there pictures in the book?
Of me in my bear costume?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, but it's the limited edition. It's the first 100 copies. So
they're gone already.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Erik signed it with his bear paw, his little bear paw.
I'm remaking Girls Night Out, and I want Erik to be the killer.
Yeah,
I would. Yeah, I just have to go naked because I'm quite hairy.
Oh, okay.
Well, yes. With that mental image, I think I think we've I think it's the podcast. Well, the thing is, we're talking about Dress to Kill, which is a psychosexual slasher movie or not slasher movie, depending on where you look at it. And I think so. Talking about plushies and Erik's bear costume and all these kind of things all fit nicely into that slightly risque side of things. So hope you've enjoyed our this podcast, and we're having a little bit of a break, aren't we? Not for very long,
just an extended week, that's all.
Just an extended week. It's only because
3 weeks instead of 2.
Yeah, because I'm on holiday and Erik's on holiday, and and we've already got the 2 next shows lined. Well, we haven't done them, but we know what we're doing. We've got interviews as well, haven't we? So for at least one of them. So we're kind of coming out of our dry spell as far as interviews go, and so we've got more. God knows we've got lots more to come. But so if we're not here on that in a fortnight's time, it's not because we don't love you. It's just because we're lying on the beach somewhere. And
well, you are. I'm not going to a beach anywhere.
Where are you going then?
I'm going to St. Helens.
Oh dear. Okay. There must be a beach in St. Helens or something. You can just
there isn't a beach in St. Helens.
We're lying around.
We can go to Liverpool and go to the beach there.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure Liverpool's lovely actually, but it is probably in February. It's not the it's not
the warmest place now.
No. I'll be in Tenerife. I'll be thinking of you all anyway, while I'm sucking on a stiff cocktail.
Sorry, you nearly made me choke on my Coke Zero.
Good thing you added the word tail in there, Justin.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's a good thing you added the word tail in there at the end.
Well, of course. Actually, what I might do is I was gonna play out with the theme tune to Dress to Kill, but I'm gonna play out with something that kind of fits the show to a think. Some people like it, some people
Shakin'
won't.
Stevens?
No, but you won't know until, because I haven't got it lined up yet, but I will have it lined up. You'll hear it when you hear it back. So without further ado, say goodbye to everyone until next time. All right.
Bye.
Hola. Goodbye. I shall wave to you from a beach, but we'll see you next time. All right. Thanks for listening to The Hysteria Continues. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
How's your hole?